Welcome back to episode 126 of the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast. My name is Josh. We're recording on Sunday night, pretty late. I'm here with Troy. What's going on, good buddy?
Not a whole lot. The reason we are recording late is because I decided to have way too many hockey things going on today. It was kind of a mess, but I'm here. We're done. I walked in the house, told Josh I'll be ready in a little bit, and now we're recording. So let's go. First weekend of NHL hockey. I love it.
So are we ready to give up on our Wild yet, Troy, or are we going to give it a few more games?
Oh my gosh. Well, their first two games. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They played fantastic the first game. They at least scored the second game, but defense was a little lacking.
Yeah, we let Toronto work us pretty good. The blue line was not good. Wild coach Dean Evison didn't hold back. It was very complimentary of our Golden Gopher, Brock Faber.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the only good defender on the team. Yeah. It's the second game. And everybody's hurt already, too. So we got that going for us, which is nice.
Yeah. He has the greatest body language ever during games because he'll be like leaned up against the board, just shaking his head, looking like he's ready to quit right on the spot. It's fantastic.
Be thankful that most of you don't live in Minnesota and have to root for our teams. We love them, but it's a challenge. You always have to, you have to work for it. Well, Troy, time to get into today. But before we get started, just a quick reminder that the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast is a Patreon podcast. That means we rely on support from listeners like yourself to help us cover our show expenses, produce more and, well, hopefully better hockey card content, and fund initiatives, even in a small way, to grow the hockey card hobby. For $5 a month, you can join our $1.99 support level tier on Patreon. That helps support our show. You get access to our Gong Show Discord server. You can participate in different events like we do, like the 5K Challenge or fantasy hockey, and just join and participate in our growing hockey cards community. It's super easy to do. There's a link on our website at hockeycardsgongshow.com right at the top of the page. It says Become a Patron. If you want, you can go to the Patreon website directly at patreon.com and search for Hockey Cards Gong Show. There's a link in the show description if you're listening to us on a podcast app, or in our YouTube description. And then finally, in our Instagram and TikTok profiles, there's a link in our link tree there. All right, Troy, should we get into it? You ready for the game plan?
I am. I'm ready. Let's get into it. On today's show, we begin with the almost greatest NHL player to wear number 26. Then it is back, baby. The return of the Who's Hot and the Struggle Bus is back. I love it. I've been missing these all summer, but now they're here. Then it's off to hobby news, followed by a little segment on whether auction houses should sell cards with fake patches in them. So we have a good discussion about that. We got a good interview on it. You'll have to wait to see who we got, but really good information, and I'm looking forward to that discussion. Next is new product releases, and we end the show with our mailbag and personal pickups. All right, Josh, another brief primer. I'm going to keep saying this because I always feel like we're going to get some new listener going, why are they doing the almost greatest? Why don't they do the greatest? We already did the greatest. We already did them. So now we are doing the almost greatest player to wear each number article, or based on the Hockey Writers greatest players to wear each number article. But we're looking at the almost greatest player, and I get to pick from the runners-up list. So not everyone will agree with my picks, but I get to choose. So we are on episode 126. So I'm going to look at the almost greatest player to wear number 26.
Okay, so I got a quick question about this.
Yeah, go for it.
Or I just had a thought. It's not really a question.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll beat this bit so far into the ground that we'll get to the point where it's like episode 4,327 no. And we get to the worst player to wear each number?
I think actually we did have someone once say you should do the worst player to wear each number. Maybe that's the next round. I'm pretty sure this will be the last time we go through the whole greatest player stuff. We'll do something else next time around. Hopefully we make it that far. But all right, so the almost greatest player to wear number 26 per the nominees in the Hockey Writers greatest NHL player to wear each number article is Martin St. Louis. Now, I see that name, and I always want to say Martin St. Louis. I think it would be better if it was Martin St. Louis, but I know it's St. Louis. As a reminder, the greatest to wear number 26 was Josh's guy, Peter Stastny.
Yeah, so who did you pick St. Louis over? Because you said you get to choose.
I can't remember. I know I looked up each one of them and tried to do a little comparison. Was Vincent Damphus in there? I don't know.
You've had a day, so we'll excuse that.
I have had a day, but I did look him up. I did research him or just a little bit to see who I wanted. But I ended up on Martin St. Louis. He is a right winger from Laval, Quebec, Canada. I feel like we've had Laval always comes up in our show. I feel like
is it Laval or Laval?
It's one of them. Someone will tell me I'm wrong.
Laval, Laval.
Laval, Laval. All right, St. Louis was undrafted as he never gained much interest from NHL teams during his early playing career. However, after 2 stellar seasons with Vermont in the NCAA, St. Louis started to come onto NHL teams' radars. However, St. Louis decided to play an additional 2 years at Vermont and was eventually signed by the Calgary Flames in February of 1998. St. Louis played in 1,134 regular season NHL games over a 16-season NHL career. St. Louis began his career playing 2 years with the Calgary Flames. He then played over 12 seasons with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He ended his playing career playing in 93 games with the New York Rangers. Now, I don't bring this up, but if anyone is a big SP Signature Edition, Legends, whatever it's called, set, I think his all-time future watch, he's in a Flames jersey, which I thought was pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is.
I suppose that would have been his rookie team.
Yep. So that I always thought that was interesting. His awards and accomplishments, Josh. He is a Hall of Famer. 1-time Stanley Cup winner with Tampa Bay. 2-time Art Ross winner. 1-time Hart Trophy winner. 1-time Ted Lindsay Award winner. 3-time Lady Byng Award winner. 1-time NHL First Team All-Star. 4-time NHL Second Team All-Star. 6-time NHL All-Star Game selection. And his number 26 is retired by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Over the course of his career in the regular season, St. Louis had 391 goals, 642 assists for 1,033 points. St. Louis made the playoffs in 7 of his 16 NHL seasons, compiling 42 goals, 48 assists for 90 points in 107 NHL playoff games played. The best season of his NHL career from a point standpoint was his 2006-07 season, where St. Louis had 43 goals, 59 assists for 102 points in 82 games played with the Tampa Bay Lightning. St. Louis scored 30 or more goals in 7 of his 16 NHL seasons. He also had 60 or more points in 11 of his 16 NHL seasons. St. Louis is obviously considered one of the greatest undrafted NHL players ever. It always amazes me, some of these guys that are undrafted and all of a sudden just has a Hall of Fame career and ends up in the Hall of Fame, but he definitely deserved it. St. Louis was known for his smaller stature, being listed at 5'8", and was one of the smallest players in the NHL during his playing career. Kind of Bedard-like. Bedard's probably one of the smallest guys out there. Him and Caulfield.
Yeah, it seems like every team's got St. Louis now,
Well, yeah, and on the, I don't know, we'll call it the skater side, at least you can be small and get looked at still. We're goalies. It's like, no, thanks. We don't want you. You're under 6'1" now. We don't want you. But with St. Louis, his size obviously was a huge factor why a lot of NHL teams didn't show any interest in him when he was younger, because he was still a scorer, putting up huge points, but it was his size that always kind of held him back until Vermont, when he started putting up numbers in NCAA. And then finally they came around and said, okay, let's take a look at this guy. So Scotty Bowman said about St. Louis, his long suit is his passion. Small players have to have some special attribute that makes them stand out. He's got great acceleration and hockey sense. So pretty good words for St. Louis from Scotty Bowman. St. Louis was also a durable player throughout his career, missing only 7 games between 2002 and 2012. I think
Phil Kessel.
No Phil Kessel. I think later in his career, he had a couple bigger injuries. Funny you mentioned Phil Kessel. I saw some clip today talking about his weigh-ins at Toronto and kind of how he refused to do the weigh-ins. It's pretty funny if you watch the clip. But let's not don't get me distracted on Phil Kessel and hot dogs. So being a solely offensive-minded player before the NHL, St. Louis credited his time with the Flames as making him a complete player. With the Flames, he was in a checking line role where he played against the opponent's top line and also killed penalties. St. Louis said he had to figure out how to be a smart player without the puck while with Calgary, and that made him a more complete player in his NHL career. Oh, no one wants to see that. Oh boy, this is all coming off the rails. Sorry, people. After his playing career, Martin St. Louis took time away from the NHL to focus coaching his son's youth hockey teams. In 2019, he became a special teams consultant with the Columbus Blue Jackets. On February 9th, 2022, St. Louis was named the interim head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. And on June 1st of 2022, St. Louis was named the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, and the interim tag was removed. If you're watching YouTube and saw me fumble through it, I actually have the news article up where he signed his extension, and they removed the interim tag, and it's all good. He is now the head coach of the permanent head coach until something happens of the Montreal Canadiens. So
it seems kind of fitting, doesn't it, to you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. A lot of, if you read about it, a lot of the stuff about him becoming the head coach there's kind of a lot of rumblings around he never coached at the professional level. Like, he ended his career, said he had a ton of interest from teams that wanted him to get in their coaching pool. Decided, nope, I'm gonna go coach my kids. And then I think when he was in Tampa Bay, the GM from Tampa Bay at the time or something made me move to Montreal, and that's how they kind of got him in there. But there's a lot of rumblings about him. But he's obviously kind of worked out, turned Montreal around when he came in I think he came in with 13 or 14 games in the one season, if I remember right. But yeah, things have picked up. He's obviously doing a pretty good job. For his fun, interesting facts, St. Louis is the all-time career leader in points at Vermont with 267. He also he's also the all-time leader at Vermont in assists with 176. Figured I had to throw some NCAA facts out there. St. Louis was the first player in Tampa Bay Lightning history to have his number retired. In 2003-04, St. Louis became the 8th player in NHL history to win the Hart, the Art Ross, and the Stanley Cup in the same season, and the first to do it since Wayne Gretzky did in 1986-87. St. Louis was the 16th player all-time in NHL history to be undrafted and play in 1,000 NHL games. And for our last fun, interesting fact, just to rub it in, of course, the Minnesota Wild passed on the chance to select St. Louis during the 2000 NHL expansion draft. He was left unprotected. Of course, we didn't want him. We passed on him. I think then he got bought out, and then he went to Tampa Bay, and the rest is kind of history. So congratulations, Wild, for missing out on him.
We didn't need him, Troy.
No, we didn't need him. Why would you? Why would you want him? It's too small.
Too small.
Yeah. His rookie card is a 1998-99 Upper Deck number 234. No Young Guns, just the regular old Upper Deck. Here you go. PSA 10 has a pop of 33 with a gem rate of 15%. Now, Josh, the last legit sale I could find looks like it was on September 8th, 2022 via eBay, verified in Terapeak for $412 US. I did find one after that, but I couldn't find it in Terapeak. It wasn't that much more. It was like 530-ish. Sure. But again, you just never know what's going on with some of this stuff. So we try to verify and make sure we find the one that looks the most legit. So that's what we got for Martin St. Louis.
Yeah, his rookie time frame fell in that weird period where Upper Deck really didn't know what to do with rookie cards.
Yep. That's kind of I don't even know what I could think of the design of this card looking at it.
It's kind of ugly.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. It looks, I don't like when it's purposely off or like small border to big border at the bottom. It's just weird.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good job, Troy. Martin St. Louis, the almost most famous number 26.
And Troy, they almost got all his pictures up right without fumbling through them this time.
It happens.
It happens.
All right, we're going to make a quick mention for Gong Show partner and sponsor Slab Sharks. Of course, thanks to them for sponsoring our show. The current Slab Sharks weekly eBay auction is live. As we know, and we just know, Troy, that they always have awesome cards. And
Yep.
of course, this week is no different. So I spent some time yesterday, which was Saturday, looking at the auction and picked out really 5, I guess, of my favorites, and just want to run through them real quick. So for you tag fans out there, Troy, there's a 2019 Upper Deck Jack Hughes Young Guns Tag 10. That's kind of cool. Looks nice in the tag holder. Have you? Oh, we've seen them in person at shows.
That's cool. Yeah. And if you're watching on YouTube, you see the picture. These are the pictures provided by Tag. Now, we've also asked that we've told them we think there should be an option without the reflection at the bottom,
cool or whatever. Yeah,
that just would display better when you're trying to sell it. But
not very functional, but looks nice.
No, but the tag slabs do look fantastic. They look great.
For hockey card podcasters and hockey, I don't know how you describe your social media. It's not very convenient. It'd be great if you would design all your systems around us and what works best for us. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sure they're just like, whatever.
Next one is a 2021 UD Ice Cole Caulfield Ice Premiers Auto on a 49. It's kind of a cool card.
Yep.
Now, you don't see this one very often. Try this next one. 2016-17 Upper Deck Austin Matthews Young Guns. We see that all the time. This is a silver foil, though, PSA 10. And here's why you don't see it very often. Pop 2.
Wow.
So we talk about how, well, and his Young Guns is one of the highest pop cards ever. And so if you want to invest in a Matthews, invest in a Young Guns, and have a budget to spend a little bit more, probably, than a regular Young Guns, much, much more scarce looking at these silver foil. There's also very nice 2015-16 Premier Connor McDavid RPA out of 199. A lot of people really digging Premier, especially with the new release. So I thought I would throw that in there. And then the last one I mentioned, or I thought I would mention, is a 2019-20 UD Clear Cut Cale Makar rookie auto out of 35. Kind of a neat card.
Yeah, I like it.
You know, another thing I noticed, if you go through the auction, and I don't know how people are doing this. Maybe they had them on pre-order or something. There's tons of Series 1 cases that are in the auction.
Interesting.
Which hasn't been released yet. But
yeah.
So there's got to be a way that happens. So if you're interested in picking up a Series 1 case, you can go to slabsharks.com, get a link to the auction, and check that out with all the other hockey cards. And if you happen to be a Canadian hockey card collector, we recommend checking out Slab Sharks for their eBay consignment services. They make it really easy to sell your cards on eBay. You just drop it off with them, mail them your cards, or they're at almost every trade show in Canada, it seems like. You can submit right there at the show. They, like I said, do all the work. They take awesome images, list them in the auctions, answer buyer questions, hunt down payment from buyers, ship to the auction winners, whether in the US or Canada, and then handle any post-sale issues. For complete consignment information, including payout rates, and to get started consigning your cards today, be sure to visit slabsharks.com. Well, you brought it up in our game plan. It's back. It's been, what, a 4-month hiatus of Who's Hot and our much beloved Struggle Bus. We're back for the 2023-24 season, Troy. So we've dusted off the Struggle Bus, changed the battery. We don't change the oil on the Struggle Bus.
No, it don't need
too
oil.
much of a POS to do that. We're going to feature players and their rookie cards and Who's Hot in the Struggle Bus each Monday on our show this season. I think last year for a while we were doing it every show, and we felt like that was maybe a little bit too much. So we want to give kind of a week to see where things shake out in between segments, I guess, of our very popular, especially the Struggle Bus segment. If you're one of our Patreon members and are in our Gong Show Discord, make sure that you do your nominations each week too. Because we look at those and consider when we're figuring out who to feature. And this is the first one. This is the toughest one because there's been a very limited amount of games. So don't kill us. Don't get too mad at our Struggle Bus nominations. We're putting that out there. That it's very early. A lot of these guys have 2, maybe 3 games. Some players only have 1 game at this point, which we didn't. even go into consideration. But okay, here we go.
All
As
right.
always, we start with who's hot. First guy we're going to feature is a guy called Gino,
Gino.
Evgeny Malkin. At a very spry 37 years old, Troy, Gino started 2023-24 on a tear. He has 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points in 3 games played. This is season number 18 for Malkin, who has played his entire career in Pittsburgh. I kind of feel like, well, again, this is us. I hate when we do this, trying to remember our own show, which we're terrible at. I just don't feel like we've talked about him much. I know we've talked about him a little bit, maybe in context of other players.
Yeah, with Sidney Crosby. He's Sidney Crosby's buddy.
He's the Draisaitl before Draisaitl, right?
Yeah.
Well, because of that, though, I was really happy that he got off to such a great start because it gives us the opportunity to feature him a little bit. And he had a solid year last year, too. I think he had 27 goals, 56 assists, 83 points, 82 games played. So 83 points, 82 games played. Of course, this isn't a math show, but carry the 1 divided by 4. Yeah, that's more than a point per game. So that's good.
Yep.
Pretty good at his age. He was, 37, 36 last year. And Troy, this could end up being a pretty big year for Malkin, who with his 2 goals already just needs 27 more to reach 500 goals for his career. Ovechkin, Sid, and Steven Stamkos are currently the only active players that have 500 goals. So it'd be cool to see him get his 500th this year, which of course would require 29 goals on the season.
Yep.
The one kind of caveat on that, though, is he hasn't had 29 goals or more in a season since 2017, 2018. So hopefully he can juice it up a little bit and get to that 500 mark. Super, super quick. Malkin is a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. He won the Calder, 2-time Art Ross Trophy winner, Hart Trophy winner, Ted Lindsay Trophy winner, even won the Conn Smythe too. So,
nice.
Very accomplished player. And Malkin is a 2006 Young Guns. His PSA 10 has a pop of only 359. Now I printed in 2006.
No.
Last sold on October 8th for $386 US. It is down about 18% in the past 6 months, but honestly, there might only be one sale. An all-time high, Troy. So I just mentioned 386 last sale. All-time high is $1,002 in March of 2021. Okay, now some people might be saying you started with Evgeny Malkin. How many listeners have we? How many people have unsubscribed?
Yeah, we never said this is a ranking of like here's who's the hottest, number 1, number 2, number 3.
We just have an order in which we pick players, and so it was a little sacrilegious, but I think the guy you picked is the definition of Enfuego.
Yeah, he's definitely the definition of Enfuego. So hey, Mr. Mustache, way to start your season. Holy cow. 2 hat tricks to start the season. Puts Matthews at 6 goals in 2 games. Pretty nice. So he is on pace for 246 goals this year, Josh.
Is that good?
That's pretty good. I don't know if Toronto played today. Maybe they did. I don't know.
No, I don't think. No, there's only 2 games today. It was only Sunday. Right. It was Tampa Bay and Ottawa, and then somebody, but it wasn't Toronto. I did notice though he has 0 assists, so he's
puck hog.
I guess a huge puck hog. Is everyone mad on the team that?
Oh, he has started off hot. It is fantastic. So Matthews is the 5th player in NHL history to open a season with back-to-back hat tricks, joining Alex Ovechkin, who did it in 2017-18. But then we go to the way back machine. We have Cy Denny, I think, 1917-18 season. Joe Malone, our boy Joe Malone. We've talked about Joe Malone, who also did it in 1917-18. And Reg Noble, who also did it in 1917-18. So there was 3 players in the same season.
But was there no goalies that year? Or what?
they just had the shooter tutors in that. No, I didn't look at really the reason why, but it's pretty cool feat for Matthews there. And I will say this too. I'm going to say a big thank you to the awesome Instagram account run by the NHL PR team. It's really good. If you don't follow it, you should. It's like PR NHL on Instagram. Okay. They have so many stats out there that they throw out. But Matthews is the first Maple Leafs player to score 5 or more goals through his first 2 games of a season since Leafs legend Wendell Clark in the 1991-92 season. I would have never known that without the PR NHL help. So thank you. So Josh, whatever wrist injury Matthews might have had last year seems to have healed itself. As I watched him play against the Wild, and I'm sure you did too, he looked really good. He looked super quick with his releases. He could fire the puck. It looks like whatever issue maybe was bothering him last year is kind of healed. He looked tough. He was firing away and just looked awesome.
Nylander looked good last night too.
Yeah.
Very
Did
good.
you not to go off the rails? They showed Nylander scored a goal last night that was exactly almost the same goal he scored last year against the Wild.
But it broke.
Yeah.
Do you think that Matthews maybe got shooting lessons from Connor Bedard this summer? Is that
maybe? I don't know, but he looked really good. So pretty good start to the season for Matthews. He signed his shiny new deal in August, so he's definitely living it up to it right now. He didn't just mail it in. He has come out guns a-blazing for the start of this season. So he definitely is who's hot.
Yeah.
So Matthews is a 2016 Young Guns card. We've talked about it many times. Has a PSA 10 pop, currently at 3,140 with a gem rate of 70%. This card, so I put a little notes in here and then Josh added one. So this card has seen a bump, obviously, from the couple of sales that occurred on 10/14 when I was doing my research. There were sales for around $830 US, where a week ago the card was in the $750 US range. However, Josh did some research today, and there was a TerraPake verified sale also on October 14th for $1,014 US. So definitely some spikes there.
That's a 33% increase over that $750 sale, which shows you how hype works in the NHL. You start the season with 6 goals in 2 games and you get a huge bump. And I just wanted to highlight your note about going back to the Slab Sharks auction with that silver foil Young Gun PSA 10 pop 2. Again, compare that to the PSA 10, which is a base, which has a pop of 3,140 and a 70% gem rate. I would think a card like that silver foil is very, very attractive if you're an Austin Matthews guy.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what that silver foil goes for.
Yeah. All right, player number 3, the last guy we're going to feature in week 1 of Who's Hot is Elias Pettersson. So, Troy, he appears to be picking up where he left off last season. He has only a goal, but 5 assists for 6 points in 2 games played. He's like the anti-Austin Matthews, I guess.
Yeah.
He's too nice with the puck.
Yep.
Now, these 2 games included 2 very nice wins over the Edmonton Oilers, which we'll reference back probably in a second here. One thing that was really interesting to me about these 2 games that Vancouver played is, so they did the home and home series with Edmonton to start the season. Do you like that concept? I don't think I do.
I'm not sure in the NHL. I like it. In college, it makes sense because we have
the series
when it's Minnesota teams like St. Cloud versus the Gophers. You go home and home because it's an hour bus ride or hour and a half bus ride, whatever it is to St. Cloud. I like that more. I think it's more of a college hockey tradition. I'm not sure I like it so much in the NHL. It's tough on the players.
Last year, Pettersson had his breakout year. He pumped in 39 goals, added 63 assists for 102 points. And we talked about Pettersson in kind of breakout candidates for this year. And it hit me in kind of looking at his stats again. I think we kind of missed this in our preview, but so if you look at as big of a deal like everyone made about Jonathan Huberdeau and how much his points went down from 2021 to 2022, I don't think we talked enough about how the inverse of that, how the huge jump Pettersson made. So in 2021, Pettersson had 32 goals, 36 assists for 68 points. And then he increased that to the 39 goals, 102 points last season, which is a 34-point increase from year to year. It doesn't seem like you get that much bigger than that typically, huh?
No, that's a pretty good jump.
Yeah. And for the next month or 2, Pettersson is still 24 years old too. So still very, very young. He's the first line center, of course, for the Nucks. Been playing to start the season with Andrei Kuzmenko and Connor Garland. Pretty decent line there. that with Pedersen's passing ability may be some sort of indication why, or give you some confidence that Kuzmenko can maybe follow up his rookie year with another strong goal scoring year too. He also sees action as you'd expect in the first power play unit. And okay, Troy, this I can't wait down the rabbit hole today.
Are we
This
talking about
this is
stiffness?
Yes, this is totally dumb. But I kind of want to get, because you know way more about hockey than me. I want to get your opinion. So I was trying to look at articles on Pedersen because I wanted
Yeah.
to learn kind of like what was the catalyst for last year, and what a lot of articles talk about is his strength. That he's a pretty tall guy. He's like 6'1", 6'2". When he came into the NHL, he was very wiry and thin, and they don't really overtly say it, but they kind of imply maybe a little weakish. And they've talked a lot about how much he's worked to improve his strength every year, and how this year he's gotten to the point where he's really, really strong. And sort of the context or the analogy that they use to demonstrate how strong he is that he is now using a stick that has 102 flex, which apparently is the second stiffest. You gotta be very careful with your words here because this can get really naughty real quick. Uh, Malkin, who Gino we talked about, has the stiffest flex in the league at 115. So 102 flex on a stick. That seems like it would be, you'd have to be pretty strong to get a good amount of whip on that, huh?
Yeah, you got to be super strong when it gets up into the hundreds, even those 90s and above. You gotta whip that stick or be strong to put enough whip into it. And I think what happens is the higher the stiff or the flex, it's able to store more energy. And so if you're super strong, and you whip that 115 flex stick, the amount of energy you can store in that thing and get a shot off is pretty, makes it a lot faster. If I remember right, I'm not the hugest goalies. We don't really use
Sure.
stiff flex on our sticks. We more concerned about lie and all that kind of stuff and length.
The article I saw said that, just as like another point of context, that like Ovechkin is like 100 flex. So
That would
he's
make
even,
sense.
yeah, which is a big, really big, strong guy. So yeah, maybe the strength part is what's made the big difference from Pedersen. Pedersen is a 2018 young gun. His PSA 10 pop 2,112 with an incredibly healthy Troy, 77% gem rate. Last sold for 160 US on October
Hmm.
12th, up 5% in the past 2 weeks, 22% in the past month. All time high, 600 US dollars in February 2020. So who's hot for week one in the NHL? Our guy Gino, Yevgeny Malkin, of course, Austin Matthews, and Elias Pettersson. All right, Troy. There it is.
Fact.
Not really reliable, but yet we can always rely on the struggle bus. It is back for the second season on the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast. And it's a little early, so that's our disclaimer
Yeah.
here. We're gonna tiptoe into the struggle bus because we don't want to offend. We know the NHL, all the players religiously listen to the podcast to make sure they're not on the struggle bus, so we don't want anyone's feelings to get hurt. And you kind of did the honor of
Yeah.
really doing our first instance of the struggle bus for 2023-24.
I did. Like you said, I think it's a little too early to call out a specific person for being on the struggle bus. With obviously, like you mentioned, teams only played 1, 2, maybe 3 games. However, we can still look and say, that's interesting. So there's just some random stuff I saw from looking at a points perspective of some players and what's going on. And they might be struggle bus people in the future if it continues, or they might not be. But from the first couple games, I think the things I saw is Matty Beniers has 0 points in 3 games, which obviously if that continues, that'd be kind of concerning. He might find himself on the struggle bus.
I don't have very good spidey senses about him this year. I have no justification
Yeah.
for that. It's kind of like how I felt about Mo Sider last year.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have a great feeling
Yeah.
about him. I don't want it because I want some good rookies from the
Yeah.
2022 class. I'm not rooting against Beniers, but it'll be now. I'm sure that I just
Jinxed it.
well,
Or did
been
not jinx it.
jinxed it in
Yeah.
a good way, right? And he'll probably have 12 goals next game. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely. And I'm going to add one here, Josh. Late breaking because I have a fantasy hockey team and I have this player on my team. Tage Thompson has 0 points in 2 games. Now, it's only 2 games, but I've looked at my fantasy points from him and it's not very good. I think it might have won negative one of the games, but he's another one. Exciting player. I think a lot's expected this year. And if that trend keeps up, he might be finding himself a seat.
so are you
And then
saying the struggle bus is basically going to be who's disappointing us on our own fantasy teams?
yeah, that's it.
So we're going
I'm
to
gonna
take out
take it
our
out.
fantasy aggression on our players on our podcast. Yeah, I got you.
Definitely. And then also another guy, Philippe Gustafsson, our guy, the Gus Bus, our goalie. Now it's hard to even I'll mention it, but he had a stellar game against Florida. Had
We didn't
41.
deserve to win that game. That's the
Yeah,
scary thing to me about the Wild season
yeah.
is if you did you watch or were you coaching against Florida?
I watched part of it. Like I had to do like the highlights thing.
The first period was atrocious. We didn't
Yeah.
have the puck at all. It was like they were on a power play the whole time,
No,
and he literally kept us in the game. Not so much game 2.
no. So he plays great against Florida, and then it just the wheels come off. Literally, I guess literally, and the Gus Bus. He let in 7 goals against Toronto. Now, that's a big oof. I'm not putting him on the struggle bus, but let's hope that he got that bad game out of the way early and he kind of rights the ship a little bit. But I think the Wild are going to struggle this year. But Gus Bus is definitely the struggle bus. He might even, could he drive he's a bus driver. We know he is. He's the Gus Bus. So I hope he doesn't
I
end
don't
up
think.
on
I think he has some pretty stiff competition
it.
from the guys you're going to
Oh,
talk about next.
jeez.
Because I would take Gustafson any day of the
Yeah.
week
Yeah.
over these guys.
Agree. So the next couple guys, and let's be fair, goalies are really easy to pick on early in the season because just one game in your GPA, your goals against might be 10 because you had a bunch of goals. But boy, did they a pretty tough first game for Jack Campbell and Stuart Skinner with Edmonton. It was rough. They both let in a bunch of goals. I think there's goals against both were like in the 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. And then I know they had another game, and I think I didn't look and see. I think they lost. Edmonton did. I don't know who played, but it's
I
a
think it was
start.
Skinner that started game 2. Campbell
Yeah,
got pulled in game 1, didn't he?
yeah, yeah. They had both had to play in game 1, and this is gotta be so concerning if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan. Everyone's thinking maybe this is the year now they do it, and you start again with what everyone says they need goalie or they need a goalie, and this is what starts. It's just not looking good right now. Hopefully, it rights itself, fixes itself. But then, Josh, we have our boy, right, McDavid. You know he's got to be just fuming about this. Like if these goalies continue to stink, he's gonna sit there. He's gonna be mad. He's gonna give us this sweet-looking face every time he's asked about it in an interview. I think we're gonna call it what the resting McDavid face.
There
And
you
I
go,
think,
Diggler. There you go.
and I think he is just going to get fed up with it and blow up on the team. But hopefully Oilers figured it out. But man, the goalie situation is scary for them. Again, they're not on the struggle bus, but they might be.
I really hate say anytime you start a sentence saying I shouldn't say this, you probably shouldn't say it. I get it. We're not going to be you and me on the People's Magazine's most 50 beautiful people, but
Yeah.
man, he throws off like the serial killer vibes.
Oh, our boy, there he is.
Yeah, I mean, like the Dexter comparisons
Yeah.
and the Connor McDomer.
Yeah.
Kind of great guy.
Yep.
Definitely not a serial killer, but yeah. I would be very worried if I was a Oilers fan. When you have Jack Campbell in like the second period or whatever it is, basically whipping his helmet all
Yeah.
over the place, that's not a good sign. And I can't, well, I think a fair amount of people thought maybe this would be the Jack Campbell redemption tour. Could still be, but not after this.
No. But again, no passengers on the struggle bus, just maybes.
Next Monday, we'll fill her up. Oh, we will. All right, Troy. Hobby news.
Hobby news.
Really short. Not a ton going on in the hobby news category. We did have some notable player extensions. Both Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele signed matching contracts. We have a little bit of experience with matching
Yeah.
contract extensions
Yeah. Didn't work out
with
well.
the Zach Parise, Ryan Suter contracts that were signed multiple years ago that we're still paying for.
Yep.
So it looks like Troy, the Jets are going to keep the band together after all. Both players signed 7-year deals worth $59.5 million that will pay each $8.5 million annually. One thing that I picked up while reading about these extensions that I didn't know, Troy, is Shifley was the first ever draft pick by the Jets 2.0
Yeah, makes
franchise.
sense.
And I think the prevailing thought had been neither would likely stay with the Jets past this year or maybe even be moved by the trade deadline. So it sounds like they were both convinced for some reason to stay. And I'm curious in a way, and I'd actually like to hear from some Jets fans how you guys feel about this. Because again, I draw these parallels back to Parisi and our guy, the marshmallow thrower era here. And I think by what was last year before last year, whatever it was,
Yeah.
we were all kind of ready for them to go. Not that we
Yep.
didn't appreciate and definitely appreciate Zach Parise, but when your team is kind of in that middling range, where what would they say? It's like the worst spot for any team to be in sports. You
Yep.
want to be amazing or horrible because then you have hope either way,
Yep.
and you don't ever seem to have much hope when you're sort of stuck in the middle, which a little bit our wild is now too. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how Jets fans feel about this. Like if maybe some were ready to tear it down and rebuild. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing too, from a hobby perspective, and getting back to our last conversation with the struggle bus, is there was maybe some thought out there that Hellebuck especially would move to maybe a contending team. Like, wouldn't the Oilers sure love to have a Connor Hellebuck
Boy,
on
yes.
their team right now? And I think that could have really well, even Samsonov has not been good for Toronto either. Now they just score like 12 goals a game, so it works out from that regard.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if Hellebuck went to like Toronto or Edmonton or another contending team? I bet you that would really juice up his market a little bit, don't you think?
Oh, for sure would. Because Winnipeg just seems like, I don't know. Even though we're close to Winnipeg, I don't even hear that much about them.
Mhm. I think people say that about the Wild too.
Yeah, true.
All right, Connor Hellebuck is a 2015 Young Gun, and his PSA 10 is popped 355, 52% gem rate, last sold for $66 on October 13th, down about 2% in the last month. Where Shifley, the first ever pick by the Jets 2.0 franchise, 2011 Young Guns, his PSA 10 popped 238, 65% gem rate, last sold for 51 US on July 25th. Doesn't sell often. This one's down about 40% in the past 6 months. So if you're a Shifley fan or Jets collector or relieved, maybe that they're going to stay with the team, prices are down. So might be a good time to pick one up.
Yeah,
Don't,
I was gonna say Shifley's like my personal O'Reilly. I pull him a lot in boxes. Like my hits are usually Shifley.
The only other kind of like player note is our guy, the 29-year-old Devon Toes, or Devon Taves, as other people like to call him, Devon Toes. He also signed a 7-year extension to stay in Colorado, though. Really good player, big part
Yep.
of their core. Not a big hobby guy.
No.
So this is more if you're like a Colorado super fan, you PC them. Probably happy with this news. Lester Taves produced 50 points with 7 goals, 43 assists in 80 games played. He does not have a young gun, so he's another guy. And I just think that they just didn't think he would be. Now it's like Upper Deck makes young guns for players whose cousins played in the NHL.
Yeah.
And it's like half these guys aren't even in the like are buried in like the Czech league now or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he did not get a young guns, and he got a future watch, but didn't even get a future watch auto. That's how
Oh.
bad it was for Devin Taves. So it looks like one of his most commonly chased rookies is the 2018 SP Authentic Future Watch out of $9.99, last sold in October 6th raw for $26. Poor Devin Taves. Okay, we're gonna move on to an issue around. Boy, it's like sometimes you wonder even how to set these up.
Is this hobby drama? Can you whisper hobby drama on this?
Oh yeah, hobby drama.
There you go.
There we go.
I'll set you up.
Well, it was kind of funny when I was actually going through hobby news, and I'm like, nothing's going on. It's kind of
Yeah.
weird. Usually, there's like too much stuff, and it's like, is this gonna be like a really short episode? And then the the Gong Show tip line
Yep.
got into full effect. We had a bunch of people reach out to us and let us know about the sale of a 2005 the Cup Sidney Crosby RPA that sold at Golden. That Golden had acknowledged and put a disclaimer that the patch was basically faked, that it was not the original patch in the card. And of course, there's a million issues that almost immediately come to mind when a sale like this happens or a circumstance like this happens that you and I wanted to dig into. And like in a lot of cases where you have these nuanced or very tricky topics that we want to cover, we are dumb. So we sought out an expert, and first person that came to both of our minds, of course, is Mitch Groppman, who is probably the cup expert number one, and this is a cup card. And he's done a ton of work, put a ton of
Yep.
effort, and been a very strong advocate for creating awareness for cards whose patches have been swapped. And so he's just the perfect person to talk to. And we put out, some feelers, and he was very gracious, kind of last minute, to join and offer his perspective. You had to be away again for coaching, so I did it solo. But we're just going to roll that interview now, where we kind of really dug in to this card and really the ethics around should auction houses or eBay or platforms sell cards that are known to have fake patches. So everyone enjoy our conversation with Mitch. All right, welcome back to the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast. It's been a minute, kind of our fault, because we need to have Mitch back on to conclude the awesome, I think the most popular masterclass series we've had on the Cup. But he is probably the Cup I'm going to go ahead and just say it, that you're the Cup expert. You've also been really invested for a long time now into the issues of, and we're going to get into the semantics too, I think, as part of this, Mitch, sort of whether it's altered patches or fake patches, which seems a little more biting in saying that, but just sort of the not real patch issue, we'll call it. And so there was, when Troy and I were alerted to this sale and this issue, there was the first person we both thought of was Mitch. And we're very, very excited and honored and pleased that he would take the time to answer the bat phone and come on to the show to talk about it. So welcome back, Mitch.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm as you said, this is a subject I'm very invested in, and I definitely have a lot to say about it.
Okay, so what I want to do just right out of the gate, because there's probably a good amount of people that aren't aware of the general issue and what's happened to this point and kind of why we're having this conversation today. So up on our screen here, if you're watching on YouTube, but we'll explain for our audio listeners, is on October 12th, an auction closed at Golden Auctions for a pretty big card, a grail card for probably almost any collector, a 2005 The Cup Sidney Crosby true RPA out of 99 that was graded PSA 6 with an auto 10 grade. The closing price was 22,570 US dollars, that I think includes a buyer's premium on that. There's a total of 52 bids. A little bit on the lower side for a Crosby card, but of this nature, but probably most people would assume that, well, maybe it has to do with the fact that it's a PSA 6 and not like a 7, 8, or 9 or higher, something like that. The issue, though, and why this card is so noteworthy is the patch is not the original patch. It's altered or fake or swapped, however you want to term it. And I'm going to scroll down for those watching on YouTube. It's a little hard to see, but in the description, kind of at the bottom, Golden states, and I'm just going to read it verbatim. Please note that the patch displayed on the offered card has been altered and does not display the same patch component that it did when it was originally issued. So the patch is not original. It's altered, and Golden is selling the card, really acknowledging the fact that it has maybe what you and I might call, Mitch, a fake patch. And the only other thing I'll throw out before I turn it to you for your initial reaction is one of the things I learned from you, I think, as a matter of fact, is one of the things that was so notable about this card, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was one of the only true Cup RPAs that included game used patches or memorabilia, where you'd have to assume that this multicolor patch that's on here is not legitimate. The only other thing I'll show for YouTube is I did kind of put together a little side by side that shows on the left here, if you're watching, with the PSA 6 holder, the card that was sold at Golden. And then it's a little fuzzy, but it's the best picture I have is the card with the original one color patch, where obviously it's not as interesting of a patch as the other one. So I guess that's my preamble, Mitch. How did I do to I'll turn it over to you and just kind of give us maybe your initial thoughts when you heard about this sale.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, nothing incorrect about what you said. So yeah, Crosby along with Ovechkin and Mikko Koivu are the only true RPAs from the Cup with game used patches. So with that in mind, altering a game used true RPA compared to a manufactured one or a player worn one, might hold a different weight for certain people. In terms of my reaction when I saw the listing, frankly, I was pretty surprised because typically the reaction that we normally see from the auction houses when they are made aware that a patch is fake, I prefer to say fake than altered, because it's to me an alteration. You're trimming the card, you're changing it in some way,
Yeah.
but in this case, you're removing it entirely and putting in a swatch that is not game used. So to me, that's a fake patch, and I think calling it altered is underselling it a little bit. So that's my opinion. And so Golden's choice here to disclose at the very bottom in somewhat small italics that the patch is not original um, is personally something I'm not a fan of. I mean, I don't know about you, but and maybe it's different when it's a five-figure card, but most people don't read every word of an auction description, and if you're gonna put it at the bottom in italic text, I have to imagine that not every bidder on this card was aware that it was fake. And, of course, you can argue that that's the responsibility of the buyer and the bidder to read the whole description. But I think Golden really could do a better job of, you know, making it more explicit that the patch is not original. If it were me, I'd be a lot more okay with it if it was in the title. I did have several people DM me about this card, being like, Whoa, look, Golden listed a fake patch." And none of those people saw that Golden did say it in the description, which I think says enough about, did Golden do enough to disclose that the patch is fake?
Yeah.
Um,
I want to kind of stick on that point
yeah.
a little bit because I have a couple comments on that too. So first of all, on the card, had you known about this specific card for a long time that the patch was fake in at some point or altered or swapped?
Yes, this is a fairly well-known copy. Part of the reason for that is because most of the reprinted Crosby Cup RPAs that I have seen, for whatever reason, they chose to use this copy in particular to reprint the card. I don't know when it was faked, but it's been faked for some time. I know that in the Hobby Insider archives of the Crosby RPAs, it does not have the fake one, so it wasn't it wasn't that old. So maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
12 to 13 years ago. Just guessing, it was faked. Maybe, I guess, 14 or 15 years ago, like 2008, 2009, is when in my opinion, we saw the most patch faking. So I would guess it happened probably around then, even though it could have been, maybe plus or minus 2 or 3 years. But
Okay.
yeah, this is one that people are aware of who are in the know about these types of things.
And I do have a couple other follow-up items about Golden specifically, but one of the things that I do want to mention though is my intention and Troy's intention too of having you on and bringing up this topic is not necessarily to throw Golden under the bus. Now, there are some things that I think that it doesn't make them immune to scrutiny either, and we'll definitely get into those points. But it's important to me just to throw out there that I think this is a much bigger issue than just Golden. And to me, like that's where the real interest lies. So we're gonna get the Golden stuff out of the way and then kind of move on to more the bigger picture stuff too. I really agree with you. I would prefer, well, at least they disclosed it. So I guess, give them a tiny shred of credit in that regard. But I do think it would be much better in the title. And to me, it points out kind of the one of the issues that we can probably big picture issues just be on Golden is that there's really no checks and balances for auction houses. Like I think we're getting more and more accustomed to on the eBay side, seeing when cards have a known issue where people now very emphatically put please read description in the title. And they do that only because they know that if I buy a card and I don't see that there's a huge chunk out of a corner, I'm going to return it and they're going to have to now deal with it anyway. So there's a stick or a consequence now that eBay has really enforced for not disclosing the issues of the cards. Where I don't think that the auction houses or other platforms necessarily have those self-implied or imposed by anyone else measures to kind of enforce that. And so it can be a little bit misleading. And I do also appreciate your point about it being a five-figure card. You should look into it. But one of the things, though, Mitch, that I would just say is maybe $20,000 isn't anything to some buyers, but $200 is a lot for other collectors too. And so I really see. I'm agreeing with you, but I think it's just as important on cards that aren't five-figure, six-figure cards that we really address this issue. Because if I had bought this card personally, and this is just my own opinion, and there can be a million different views on how people think about a card like this, is I would be pretty bummed, I think, just like you, if I had bought this card and then learned after the fact that I maybe didn't read the fine print and found out that the patch wasn't legitimate. So I'm totally on board and on the same page. One of the interesting questions I have just about the Golden side of this, though, is that you look at a $22,000 sale. I don't know their fees or percentages, but to me, Mitch, I'm kind of surprised that they would even knowing that there's going to be scrutiny for what is it, 1,000, 2,000 bucks? Maybe they make on the sale, something like that. Why they would even list it in the first place? Or are you kind of curious about that too?
I know that there are previous Golden listings that have been taken down because they were made aware that the patches were fake. I think this could just very well be Golden kind of testing the waters on, well, what if we disclose it and see what happens? Then maybe we can still get our commission from these types of cards. One thing I'll say about a card like this is that it's, for a patch, maybe some ultimate premium patch of, I'm just throwing out a name, Corey Perry. Maybe it's a $50 card and someone put in a like the Mighty Duck bill inside of that patch. For something like that, you have the question of, okay, what do I do with this card now? Like for that, the entire appeal of the card is the patch. And so maybe for a card like that, we can say, okay, this we can, kind of just put aside and kind of take it out of the hobby. But for a card like the Sidney Crosby Cup RPA, which I would argue is the most iconic modern hockey card, and that's just my opinion, there's only 99 of them. So even with the fake patch, I think people, obviously people want every aspect of the card to be good, but people want the card. People are really buying the card more than they're buying the patch. Of course, within the scope of the Crosby RPAs, the nicer the patch is, typically the higher the sale. But for the most part, in my opinion, people really just want the card for what it represents. I've made the thought question to people: if Connor McDavid's Cup RPA was game worn and Sidney Crosby's Cup RPA was event worn, would their prices be any different? I argue that they wouldn't. A lot of people think differently,
Yeah.
but in my opinion, the card's values would be the same. And I think that's because people really just they don't care about the patch. They care about this is the most high-end product. This is his true rookie card from that product. And even if it's altered in some way, people still want that card much in the same way that people still are going to pay 7 figures for the Hannes Wagner that was famously sold and owned by Wayne Gretzky as a known shrimp card.
Totally get that. Well, I think that's evidenced too by the fact that somebody paid $22,570 for the card, which is a lot of money. And there's 52 bids. Now, one of the things I don't love about the Golden website is if you go in the bid history, it doesn't, even like eBay, it doesn't give you sort of an indication of how many bidders. It just tells you the amount and timestamp. So we don't honestly know if that's 25 bidders or 3 that just
Mhm.
competed with each other, but there was enough competition to raise the value of the card, like I said, to $22,570. And I wanted a little context on this too, to think, well, how much would the fact that the card has that fake patch disclosure, how much should that affect price? And so if you look at the recent handful of sales, now again, these don't sell every day because there's only 99 of them and it's a very expensive card. What I found, Mitch, is that kind of the range lately has been 40 to $60,000. But one of the things that, well, I should say too first, then you have to factor in, does the PSA 6, do you think that that affects the price at all? That, or is it because it's a cup card and Crosby, the 6 doesn't matter?
I mean, I think the 6 has some effect, but I think I don't, guessing 90% of that huge dip in price compared to their other recent comps would be attributed to the fake patch, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Well, there's a really interesting comp out there too from this past February. So what is that? Maybe 8 months ago now, where a BGS 8, so much higher graded, of course, but different grading company. It has the one color patch that this card originally has, very similar, sold for 31,800. So if you compare this card to that sale, is that it sold for like basically 2/3 of the value of the card with the real game used patch, which to me is even a little bit surprising because I look at, well, to talk about the card specifically, you know, let alone the sale or the golden aspect, is it really bums me out personally to know, because I'm, maybe I'm a romantic too much about the hockey hobby, but I kind of see it like you, this as a piece of history a little bit. And like you said, there's only 99 of them. It's one of the most important cards that there is. It really defines, to maybe a certain degree, modern hockey card collecting. And one of those very scarce resources has been messed with by someone. And that just bums me out. Do you feel similar?
Yes, it brings me an immense amount of dread to think about all the fake patches that are out there and ones that I'm not even aware of. And it's something that I actively have to grapple with as someone that primarily collects high-end autographed patch cards.
I want to talk about Upper Deck in a little bit, but we had actually, I think it's in our mailbag today. Somebody asked a question or suggested, should Upper Deck almost have like a hierarchy of patches? And so, like when you look at Cup RPAs or exquisite RPAs from the Cup, or Ultimate or Premier type, like the high end sets, is that if Upper Deck just saved or kind of had a force ranked the best patches and put those in those cards first, would we have these issues to the degree we do?
Well, I think in some way they're already kind of doing it. They've definitely, I think they've stopped putting one color patches into the cup for RPAs entirely. I know that for Connor McDavid's rookie, his cup RPA, even though they're event worn, I think all of them are 3 colors. So there's not like an oil drop or something like that,
Sure.
but at the very least, they're all 3-color patches. And to my knowledge, none of those have been faked. Now, the other benefit with the McDavid RPA is that Upper Deck also released a photo of all 99 copies. So that would make it a lot harder to fake it and have that appreciate the value in any way. So it's hard to say, is there a hierarchy? I mean, they're also, even within the set, there kind of is too, because they put like the shoulder patches and the gold RPAs now. So those also are probably not too susceptible to being faked anymore. It seems like right now the modern cards, when I say ultra modern cards that are being faked the most, are from Premier and the Future Watch autograph patches are the two that I see the most, more than cup patches, at least for like products released in the last 3 years. And there's not too much of it. And we saw that scandal a couple of years ago with the Jason Robertson and Ottinger patches that got faked quite a bit. But it's definitely not as bad as it was when I first became aware of the problem in 2008 with all the fake Kane and Tays patches.
When I think to support that, now there's much more risk to swapping a patch in an Ovechkin or Crosby RPA and having it found out to have been altered versus having the original, because you're just going to make more money on the original anyways. And so there's almost a disincentive to do that. But kind of keeping on the incentive sort of theme, do you feel that whether it be Golden or any marketplace or any auction house, that in your opinion, should they sell cards that have knowingly fake patches, whether they disclose it or not?
So, I mean, maybe people won't be satisfied with my answer, but I do think that they should make a judgment call. Because I think, if a card is just a patch card, that, I don't know how you can define this exactly, but if you can say that this card is not, you know, important, and I know that's a very vague word to use in this case, but something like the Crosby, I don't think should be taken out of circulation. I think it's too important of a card. And I think that there's enough knowledge out there that prospective buyers should be aware or should be able to find out that the patch is fake. Now, there's also the element of people not knowing that grading companies can't authenticate patches. So there are a lot of people that see a fake patch in a PSA or BGS slab, and it doesn't say trimmed or altered or authentic or whatever. And people think that because it's in that slab, the patch must be real. But no one has the ability to verify that a patch is legit. Recently, Beckett has just started rejecting patch cards with crazy patches in them, even if they don't think that the patch has been altered. They still will reject it because they don't want the risk. It seems like PSA does not really have um, that policy. So just because a card is in a PSA slab and it has a grade and PSA DNA certified, none of that means that the patch is legit. So that's one thing I'd love to impress on your viewers. I think I've said this on the show before, but a grading company cannot authenticate a patch.
That's a really important concept. I think I might actually disagree with you a little bit. I understand wanting to keep the card in circulation, but I wonder if whether it's Golden or Heritage or anybody, if they will knowingly sell cards like these, if that even indirectly provides an incentive to continue to do it. If I can swap a patch and I know even if it's a disclaimer that Golden will accept it, then and I think I can get more money because the patch is more interesting, then and I know I have an avenue to sell the card, whether I get caught or not, then yeah, I'm gonna do it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense, but I think that for cards that are important like this, no one is going to, you can just compare this sale to ones that are not altered, and you're going to take a big hit by altering the patch. It's pretty difficult, especially these days, where so many of the box breaks are done on stream, to get a card and alter it before anyone sees the card. It was actually way easier in 2006 because
Sure.
no one really started doing box breaks until 2007, in terms of recording it and putting it on the internet. And there wasn't really streamed box breaks, like group breaks, until 2008. I mean, there were a couple, like very, very few that happened before then. But for the most part, almost all of these products were getting broken privately, not, and I mean, a lot of them were uploaded to forums and eBay, but not nearly at the clip that they are now. There was no Whatnot or, hobby Instagram or anything like that. Even like Facebook groups weren't really a thing back then. It was really forums and, eBay. And that was pretty much the only places you were going to see a card.
Yeah. So you think that, and it's a, like you said, kind of a tough sort of distinction to make, because one man's important may not necessarily be another man's important, but for kind of the core cards that you'd prefer to see them in circulation. So if that's the case, do you think that there needs to be some sort of then standardization as to how these are handled somehow, for the hobby to get to the place where everyone agrees, okay, we're going to disclose it in the title or handle it this way to ensure that, because at the end of the day, if you're comfortable with the patch the way it is and you're willing to pay 22,000, I guess go for it. But I think, to me, it's important that everyone understands what they're buying.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I think obviously the answer to the question, should there be standardization, it would be yes. I think most systems are better to not be a Wild West free for all. In terms of how could we get to a place where there is some kind of standardization, I think people would have to just care more than they do now. Because I really don't think people care as much as they think they do. And I'm making it a very broad, sweeping statement about the hobby when it comes to patches. I think we've learned, especially recently, that overall, the hobby doesn't care that much if patches are game used or player worn. I mean, there's definitely some kind of premium, but I think if you went back 10 years and tried to explain these, price discrepancies, especially if you look at like basketball, where the RPAs don't have any connection to the player and they still sell way high, and the fact that the McDavid RPA outsells Ovechkin, even though that one's event worn or photo shoot worn and not game used like the Ovechkin is, to me, that says that we don't care as much as we think we do. Because to me, if the whole reason I want a game used piece of patch is because the player used it in a game, that is very cool. If that's not the case, then I don't care about it at all, which is why I don't even collect rookie cards, because that entire aspect of the hobby where I get kind of brings me closer to the game is taken away, in that way. So I think, I don't think people think about it too much. They just know, okay, the RPA is the pinnacle type of card. You want the autograph, you want the patch in there. I don't even, it's interesting. I wonder how it became the case that we decided as a hobby that for the coolest looking patches, we're going to pay sometimes 4 or 5x what the card normally goes for. Um, you know, these are questions that I don't think there's enough, hobby introspection about. We just kind of accept this is what people like. And I understand from an aesthetics standpoint that a more aesthetically pleasing card should be more valuable. But I think we should really start to ask ourselves, like, what is it that we care about when it comes to why do we care about this patch?
That's a great point because it seems like as long as the patch is interesting and colorful, people don't care whether it's player worn or event used versus like a game used, but everybody loses their mind over a sticker auto.
Yeah.
Right. So it is almost a discrepancy in how much weight is put on each one. And I think too, one of the challenges that just naturally Upper Deck is going to have, and hopefully the hockey hobby grows, is that or in growth presents a big patch problem, especially for like even player worn. Because if you're going to have, well, like let's take like the Fanatics 10x, that probably won't happen. But if it's 2 3x, you can't have a player wear 600 jerseys in a day to get enough patches to make all the cards that you want to do. And to your point, it's because the patch auto, let alone not even just a rookie patch auto, but to get a McDavid patch auto in even a current set is such a big chase that Upper Deck has a lot of incentive to include more and more of these cards. And I'll even admit to some degree, it's like I don't mind player worn. I prefer game used, but where I totally get lost is like I was watching a breaker the other day, opening up a case of SP game used, and I think 80% of the patches are manufactured, which kind of I guess maybe reinforces the point you just made, right? That people just don't care that they'll have like a silk screened weird logo on a banner, and they call that like a patch. And or Upper Deck does, and people get in a box that's over $100 for one pack, and I guess people are satisfied with that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you see publicly people say that they're not satisfied with that, but at the same time, it seems like people have this fixation on the idea of a patch that we've somehow accepted these manufactured patches as somehow being in any way better than a regular insert. Like you have the Black Diamond puzzle piece patches, and in SP Game used to have those where they let the nickname banner thing. I don't.
Yeah, there's nickname, but even on Black Diamond, like one of the big cards in this year's release was the team logo jumbo patch that was autoed, and it was a manufactured patch. It was the material was like a some sort of fabric that was the color of the team, and then they had a full screen printed logo on there,
Mhm.
and it was a and so you had like Matty Beniers rookie team jumbo logo manufactured patches selling for like $800-900, and which kind of blew my mind, to be honest with you, because I completely, and it's a personal preference thing, and maybe I'm being a snob, and that's fine. I'm not do not represent what's good or best in the hobby by any stretch, but you totally lose me at those cards. Like I have literally less than zero interest.
What do you think about the Cole Caulfield? I don't know if you saw this card. It was the premier one of one quad patch with the Reebok like neck lining across all of them. Even though um, the NHL stopped using those jerseys in 2017, well before Caulfield entered the NHL. I mean, to me, like I have a hard time understanding why anyone would care about those patches that are clearly so far removed from the player. Even if he wore it for 5 seconds, to me there that adds zero value to me as a collector.
Yeah, I reached out to Upper Deck about that card specifically and got a response from them. And so what they said, it kind of does make sense. I don't know if this will satisfy anyone, but so you're correct that Upper Deck stopped using Reebok jerseys at the end of the 2016-2017 season. Caulfield was drafted in 2019. It was a jersey he wore at the rookie photo shoot in 2019 because the obvious is, well, Jesus, this is 2021 set. That's 4 years after, but he was really 2 years because he was drafted in 2019. And the answer I heard is that in the early stages of Adidas ramping up that the jerseys were very hard to get, and that Upper Deck likely had these in inventory, like kind of leftovers, and they just had Caulfield throw on a jersey. Because the other thing too, I don't think a lot of people understand is at these rookie photo shoots, it's not like Cole Caulfield jerseys like with his number that they throw on. It's just a Canadians jersey that like we've along like a lot of people talk about like the 88, right? Because that's the number that produces the largest patches or that has the ability to produce the most interesting patches. And so they just have them throw on a jersey. But I'll even take it a step beyond that. I was having a conversation about patches the other day with someone who said that they saw like an interview or a podcast or something like that with Emmett Smith, where he sort of talked about he was trying to, I think, give people a little bit of understanding or forewarning about not getting too in love with the romance of these patches. He said even in game use patches, he would put on a jersey, go out for warm-ups, like jog around the field for 2 minutes and come back and then take it off, and that's a game used jersey.
Yeah. And I know of I don't want to, you know, cause anything, but I know at least in the NHL there's a player who a lot of people collect, where his most of his Upper Deck game used jersey cards are just from the 3 stars of the game, where he'll put that on after the game, do a little lap, and then take it off and then give that to Upper Deck. So that's definitely a big part of it too. And we have to ask ourselves like, to what extent do these companies kind of owe us some kind of proof that these jerseys were used in a game? I mean, at what point would the hobby lose faith? And then even if they did, though, would they care? Because, like I said before, it seems like that aspect of it is kind of not that important. I mean, maybe, you see a very, very small handful of patches that maybe come from like a Stanley Cup Finals patch. And those definitely command a big premium because you can actually place it in a very small handful of games and more important games too. But even with those, we know of Upper Deck getting real jerseys that had fake patches sewn onto them, and then those fake patches got into cards. So, what is the right way to respond as a hobby? It's tough, and I don't know what the right thing to do is. I know that I can at least say to myself, even if Upper Deck has a perfectly valid justification of why Cole Caulfield wore this 2017 jersey in 2021, and then that product was released 2 years after that, and then that's a rookie card. As a collector, it doesn't make me care any bit about the card.
Yeah, I think it's a personal kind of preference type thing. And there's a part of me, Mitch, as I'm listening to you talk, that wonders if that's even necessarily a bad thing. It's like because I think like the sort of fantasy type ideal would be, well, if the jersey that the player who scored the game winning goal in the Stanley Cup, right? I have a patch from that, but I might argue that that jersey probably shouldn't be cut up in that case and maybe should be intact and in the Hall of Fame. And if they wore a jersey that game in warmups or something like that, that maybe that's a good enough representation of that game for that specific card too. That it is kind of a very nebulous sort of distinction, right? That I think that you've done a good job of articulating. And I do actually have one idea around this. I don't know how good it is, but I almost wonder if at some point that there needs to be a hobby wide sort of trade association that would really develop the standards. So like I come from the media world. Like that's the my profession. And there's an association called the IAB, right, to the Internet Advertising Bureau, right, on the digital side, that really standardized like what is a click, like what is an impression when you show an ad, and kind of that everyone bought in. And it, because ultimately when you do that, it makes commerce actually easier because it puts everybody on the same page with a standardized set of rules. And so now I don't know how, whether it be Upper Deck or Panini or Fanatics or Golden or PWCC or Heritage or any of these other big companies, how jazzed they would be to do that. But somehow, if you had a hobby wide trade association that could standardize different aspects of how cards are produced, how cards are sold at auction, and then essentially accredit a auction house like Golden or a manufacturer like Upper Deck, that would be kind of one way at least to provide consistency, and then let people make their own decisions, whether on an individual card basis. If the it was like, what is a player worn, like what's the exact definition of that, and is it a card, do I care, basically, at that point. Do you like that idea or no?
Yeah, I love the idea. I don't know that any of these companies have any incentive to, create that, because it would certainly make the job of every card company harder. I think in the long term, it would probably give the public, the consumer, the collector, a better trust in what they were buying. And it's hard to quantify, what effect a lack of trust might have on the market for these cards. But I mean, more people are collecting now than they were, 15 years ago when everything was game used. So it doesn't seem to me like they care that much, even though I care. I've reconciled with the fact that I don't think overall the hobby at large really cares. The biggest cards, the biggest RPAs, they're all event worn. The limited logos at a 50 with a game use patch don't, for the most part, outsell the cup RPA at a 99. And that's just what the hobby has collectively decided, and that's how it is.
I think, to your point though, that the trust thing is really big, in that there's certain sort of foundational principles that support any market. And if you don't have trust, it's really hard for you to have a solid foundation. And I'll even tell you how this has impacted me personally. And I know Troy feels the same way, because we've talked with all these fake patch issues that we've had over the past year, that I would be really nervous buying a, like, let's say this card didn't have the disclaimer and it wasn't known that the patch was fake, because it is in, I don't really care as much about, and this is again my own personal bias and subjectivity, and I guess taste in collecting, is, to me, what's, I feel very strongly about the card being original and authentic.
Hmm.
And I just terrified buying a card like this, that, and especially that had an amazing patch, with the fear that, is this patch original? And if I did all the research I possibly could and couldn't find a photo of that card from release, I don't know if I would even buy it. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've grappled with before buying cards many times. I've probably spent, I mean, I don't want to make this claim without, but I don't know that anyone has spent more time like investigating the authenticity of a patch than I have. And I've definitely, steered away from patches that I wasn't sure of just because I couldn't find any evidence of it. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, the card companies are pretty much only going to respond to public pressure. So, in my mind, the only thing I could imagine that would actually get these companies to change in some way is if someone made like some documentary that became very popular where they went and like investigated how your game used patches were acquired, and like traced everything back somehow, which I imagine the card companies would make it extremely difficult for anyone to do that, because I think more than ever we are very not privy to how these jerseys are actually worn by the players, how they're acquired, and then eventually cut up. I mean, we see all the time where ones where we can know instantly that they're wrong. Like you'll see an Avalanche card with like, he's only played with the Avalanche and it's a Flyers patch. But think about how many times it's happened where it was an Avalanche card and they just put in another Avalanche player, and we would never know. There's probably way more examples of that than examples where they get the team wrong. So I imagine that there's tons of patches that are not actually associated with the player that they claim, but as consumers of these cards, we really have no way of knowing and nothing to like give us any confidence that these attributions are correct. But as a hobby, for whatever reason, it seems like we've just kind of accepted that that's the way it is, and I've not really seen any real push for the card companies to give us a better transparency for how they can assure us that the patch is actually associated with the player.
The way that I kind of separate it is, if you've ever heard sort of the distinction of the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, I think, or I guess in my opinion, that I know myself, and I would going to project on the hobby here, that we kind of or we hang on to what the spirit of the patch is, where the manufacturer really goes by what the letter of the patch is, right? So if we pull a Connor McDavid player worn patch, right, what's in our mind is him skating around the rink and splitting two defenders and deking the goalie and scoring a beautiful goal. But in reality, it was probably at a photo shoot where he wore it, somebody counted to 5 and he took it off. And then he complained that his hair got messed up.
Yeah. And then if it was maybe, I don't know, who was a Oilers rookie in 2016 that wasn't McDavid, Laurent Brossoit, I think. If it was that jersey instead, you'd never know.
Sure.
There'd be absolutely no way of anyone ever finding that out. And but does that matter? Like the fact that we could not possibly ever know if a 2008 Patrick Kane RPA was worn by Patrick Kane or Jack Skilley, who was also a rookie that year. Does that matter? To me, it matters, but there's nothing we can do about it. And I don't see the card companies ever doing anything to give us an assurance that they have the association that they claim. So to me, the way that I, can still happily collect in the hobby despite having this huge disconnect is that what I'm really collecting is the card. And the patch, I like the patch that the patch is in there. I like what the aesthetic of the patch gives. If they tell me it's game used, that is good. That's what I want. But I have to just kind of accept that it might not be. But it is at least autographed and held by the player, which is why I don't like stickers personally. So that's just how I have to compartmentalize it to keep myself, happy being in the hobby.
I definitely understand that. But again, let's go back full circle here to the issue of fake patches, and the issue of this Crosby is that whether it's player worn, event used, game used, and whatever that means, which to you very eloquently pointed out, we don't know per se the details of it. Anyways, is, should it matter that the card is original? Because this is not an original. This is not the card as it was intended and produced by Upper Deck.
Yeah, despite everything I just said, let me be absolutely clear that the card being as it came out of the pack is like number one most important. Um, for me, I'd rather a card be damaged out of the pack than altered by someone that's not affiliated with Upper Deck. So let me be absolutely clear about that. If you altering a card is the biggest hobby faux pas you can make, to me. So that is huge. If a card's been altered, in the sense that it's been it's trimmed, or the patch is fake, or a faded autograph got traced over, any of those three things, I don't want it.
So is this a card you would want in your collection?
No, but I don't collect rookie cards.
Yeah. Okay. That's not a card I would want either, I guess, in my collection. I have one sort of like juicy theory I want to run by you before I let you go, but I do want to mention, which we actually haven't yet, and I'm going to pull up on the screen for people watching YouTube. Is well, we started out by saying that this is an issue that you've been invested in for quite a while, and you run a very popular and an amazing resource on Instagram called, it's the account is fake underscore hockey underscore patches, where as you learn about cards that have patches that have been altered, you post them to at least, and I'll not trying to put words in your mouth, but at least this is my interpretation of it, that to create awareness, so at least people understand that if they're buying a card with an altered patch, that they know that the patch has been changed. Is that the, or are there other reasons why you created the account?
I mean, that's definitely probably the biggest thing. I mean, I had a guy a couple weeks ago, if you actually scroll up to the top there, that fake Sidney Crosby exquisite tribute, that card actually came up to a guy at a card show, I think at the Dallas card show. And if not for my post, he would have paid a tremendous amount of money for that card in its altered state. So if you click the arrow, you can see the way it looks now. Yeah. So that
Wow.
card, yeah. So that card like that came up to the guy at the show, and he was ready to buy it. He was very smart to check the page to see if it was posted there, because I think that's a card where 2 or 3 of the copies are known fakes. For whatever reason, the 0910 exquisite basketball hockey cards have been faked a ton. I think every card in the set I know of a fake copy of it, especially like Gordie Howe, where they were all jerseys. I think 2 of them people put Red Wings patches in there. So it's definitely something where I just want to be able to document everything. I used to have a much larger archive of fake patches, but back in the day, Photo Bucket got nuked and we lost everything. So this is everything I have left. And I actually have more that I have not posted because I don't have the originals. And I feel
Yeah.
that if I just post a patch and I can say, I know for a fact that this is fake, but I don't have proof that I can show you, I think that maybe would cause more problems than I care to deal with.
Well, everyone
But
should go follow it. If you're on Instagram, go to fake underscore hockey underscore patches and give it a follow, because it is an amazing resource. And there is kind of a night and day difference. You look at the Crosby that you just told us the story through, and wow, I mean, yeah, you saved that person a lot of money for, I guess, a lot of disappointment and overpaying for something they ultimately wouldn't have wanted. But there is a significant difference in the card, where so you can kind of see how the, I guess, appeal that sometimes altering the patch or swapping the patch can definitely have in the card. So is there anything else that you think in this conversation that's important for people to know about before I run my crazy theory by you?
um, I would just say, that it's likely, if at some point through your collecting journey, that if you acquire enough patch cards, you will acquire a card that has a known fake patch. And a lot of people, when they are caught, holding the bag, as they say, with a fake patch, they don't know what to do with it. And usually, what I see happen is they will reach out to the person that they bought it from, and they will try to get a refund for it, which I would say maybe 80% of the time I see that successfully happening. But then what does that person do? And then who's really at fault? Because usually what happens is the person will fake it, and then they'll either just list it at 99-cent auction on eBay, or they'll go to a card show, and then they just kind of like, no one, can really pin them down. Um, so a lot of people come to me, they're like, hey, I have this fake patch, I paid this amount of money for it, what do I do? Even if you look at that Patrick Kane Prime patch, that's next. So that's a whole row of Patrick Kane there, but the Prime patch on the left, a guy bought that on DC Sports. It was a consignment company, and I was able to figure out that it was fake because I looked at and this is with the help of a friend who's a big Blackhawks fan, but we looked at all of the Stanley Cup Finals jerseys that Patrick Kane actually wore, and we determined that the Stanley Cup Finals patch was never sewn onto that seam. And then
Oh,
so you see it's like over the seam. Yeah, that never happened on a real Blackhawks game used jerseys. So that's one where I realized it was fake, but I couldn't post it, or I choose not to post them unless I find the original, and then I just happened to sort through endless historical listings for Kane Prime patches, and then I happened to find the original, and then I posted that, and then he contacted DC Sports, and they actually gave him a full refund. I think it was an $800 sale, which is huge for a Prime patch. I think the original one is maybe a I don't know $100 card. So
but the original patch isn't even that bad.
right, and
That's pretty nice.
That's always the worst, when you see that the original is actually decent and then they just want to go and make it into something like this, because I mean, with they have used finals jerseys before, like we know that, but yeah, this one's not. So it's a really tough thing, because at the end of the day, that's kind of the tragedy of the fake patch, is that someone's going to be caught holding the bag, and it's almost never the guy who faked it who's the real, to me, a criminal. So it's
The other thing I would add to that, because I've actually been in this situation with autos that turned out fake,
mhm.
is as tough as it is to hold the bag and swallow the pill, as they might say. If you do end up with a card and you're stuck with it, you gotta own it. You gotta, if you're gonna move it, you have to disclose it. And I don't know about you, Mitch, but I believe in karma, or whatever you want to juju, whatever you want to call it. And I think
Mhm.
that the more good you put out, and it stinks to be in that situation. I have a Michael Jordan auto that's not real. That really stinks, and I'll never sell it because even though it's a pretty good, not fake, because I just, that's just not the ethical thing to do. So I would just appeal to people's personal ethics.
Yeah, and that's a very touchy subject. I've had people beg me not to call out that their card is fake, even though they didn't fake it, just because they were the one stuck with the bag, and they wanted to be able to sell it before it was exposed. So it's a very difficult subject. I think it would be great if we could all just did the right thing as much as we could. I think the hobby would be a better place. But some people, like, they invest a lot of money into these fake patches without knowing, and that's just the tragedy of it.
Oh, it stinks.
Yeah,
It's horrible.
I've seen
Okay,
people quit the hobby over it several times.
that's sad. I mean, that's something we definitely don't want. All right, so
Mhm.
here's my theory.
All right.
You tell me if I'm onto something or on something.
Okay.
So I'm sure you're aware we have Series 1 coming out next week, right?
Hmm.
It's a little early. And there's a part of me that's kind of bummed, because I like when Series 1 comes out during the expo. I don't know. It's just kind of fun.
Hmm.
But then I got to thinking, and this is based on nothing I've heard from Upper Deck or anything like that. So this is just Josh's stupid theory, and don't read too much else into it. I also feel like Upper Deck, because this is what I would do with the whole Connor Bedard mania, wants to get everything out that's not 2022 or 2023 24 Series 2 out before that set releases. So I think that part of the reason why Series 1 is coming out this week is 2021, the Cup is coming out during the expo.
I would be shocked. I would be really shocked. I know that at the National, a rep from Upper Deck showed me a Logan Thompson Cup RPA that he signed recently.
I've seen that too, yeah.
So I mean, maybe it's close, but usually there's more run up than it would be like 2 weeks.
Well, it's a
I
month. It's like a month
it's less
and
than a month now.
less than a month. So less than 4 days less than we're talking on the 15th here. So it's Sunday the
Yeah.
15th. But so what percent chance you think I'm right?
10.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. I said it's a crazy theory, so I'm not. My
I,
feelings
I
are
I
hurt.
don't even think it'll be out before the end of the year.
You
Which,
don't, huh? But do you think it'll come out before Series 2?
um, yeah, I think it'll probably come out the same time it came out this year, probably in February.
I just have a theory that you're going to get really, really good wax deals on anything not 2023, 24 Series 2 once that set comes out because so much of the focus and attention is going to go there, at least for a few month window.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think a lot will hinge on how quickly the 101 is pulled. Even though the high gloss will probably be a disgustingly expensive card.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. All right, man. Thank you. Very short notice. Thank you for your willingness to come on. And one of the things that I do really appreciate about you is that you have so much knowledge, and particularly around the cup. And what I've observed over the past year and change now is just your willingness to help educate the hobby and share what you've learned when you wouldn't really ever have to do that. And to some degree it probably makes it more expensive to buy the cards that you're looking to do so. But I just want to give you a little bit of thanks for that and tell you and let you know how much that I personally appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. If I could just respond to that real quickly, even if me putting out what I put out about the cup might make the cards I want a little bit more expensive. I plan on being in the hobby for a very long time. I mean, I'm a young guy. I'm still in my 20s. So it's in my best interest, 30, 40 years from now
Sure.
to expose more people to these things, even if it's going to um, make it harder for me in the short run. Well, I'm very lucky to be in a point right now where I have most of the cards that I want. So I don't mind at all. I really just try to make the hobby better, and that's what I derive the most satisfaction and pleasure from these days. So I'm happy to do it, and I'll keep doing it.
All right. Well, we'll talk soon, and we are gonna next on the docket. And if Troy would have been here, we would have actually scheduled it, but we're gonna get that done because we do have to finish our master class on the cup, and looking forward to that. So thanks again, Mitch, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Troy. Well, I know that you just walked in the door and you haven't even had a chance to listen to Mitch's conversation, which I'm sure you will later on.
Yep.
But before we move on, I just kind of want to get your 2 cents on this. So when you saw the messages come through about this, what was your kind of gut reaction to? Do you think that companies like Golden or any other auction house should sell cards that are known to have fake patches?
I think my first reaction was I thought, no, they shouldn't. Why would you sell this? It's not the original card. It's altered. It's fake. But then I started thinking a little bit more about it, and like, well, we do live in a free market. You're free to do whatever you want. You can sell whatever you want as long as it's not illegal, basically. And this isn't illegal. So I think where I've ended up, as long as there's enough disclosure about what's going on, I think I'm okay. If they still, if an auction house or anyone sells this, we'll get into this. You probably got into it in the interview. The whole disclaimer being kind of buried really rubs me the wrong way on this. And I don't agree with that one bit. But at the end of the day, I think I actually would land on it's okay to sell this because the auto is, we still think, is authentic.
Yeah.
And as long as you're fine with what is disclosed, I think I'm okay with it being sold. I don't like it. Yeah, it's something I wouldn't buy, but there might be someone out there that does want to buy it. So I think that's where I am landing. Originally it was no, but now I think I'm actually okay with it being sold as long as there's appropriate disclosures.
I don't know if this is like pushback on that, because I think you and Mitch had a very similar sort of take on it, and I largely agree with you. The only things that I wonder about are, well, first of all, like from like this conversation to me isn't just about Golden; it's much bigger than that.
Yeah.
And they did do a disclaimer. Now, did they do it in the way that we would hope they would? Probably not, but there's no kind of standardized way of doing it, anyways.
Yeah.
I'm curious why they would, for what do you think they make $2,000 commission on this card to open yourself up to the level of scrutiny that would potentially come with a decision like that? To me, is very curious business decision on their part. If I own Golden, or an auction company or auction house, I would just not want to deal with the potential fallout of, the what do they say, the juice isn't worth the squeeze,
Yeah.
sort of, as it comes in that regard. And then the only other kind of quick thing is, the only that I wonder about, if auction houses sell cards that have known fake patches, does that somehow create an incentive to keep doing it?
Yeah. That
Right.
that
Well,
I can agree with you on that. It probably does. It honestly it probably does.
because now you have a sales outlet to do it. So, very, very interesting. No easy answer here.
Yep.
But and again, thank you, Mitch, for tons and tons of great context on that. We're going to quickly move into new product releases, and it's going to be very quick because we're kind of in the calm before the storm, Troy, for the big Series 1 release that comes out on Wednesday. I did a quick check this morning. Just in the US, pre-sales are still around 130 US, so kind of holding steady there. And as I'm headed into Wednesday, there's really two things that I'm most curious about or interested to see how it shakes out with this release. Is how will the hobby respond to the new configuration with
Mhm.
12 cards per pack, a little more hits? We got all the new Young Guns parallels. I'm going to be really excited to see what the general consensus is. Do people like it, love it, or hate it, kind of deal? And then the more I think about it, I mean, I don't know how excited I am about this hobby club. I mean, of course, I like our guy Matthew Nyes, and he's
Yeah.
pretty good against the Wild last night. And Luke Hughes has potential. Matthew Coronado, I think, scored last night, his first goal. You got Devin Levi, the Jedi Master goalie,
Yep.
kind of, but it's not going to hold a candle to Series 2. And
Nope.
so it'll be really curious to me to see how that part of it shakes out, and who the chases are, and like what these cards are going, like even like a base for Matthew Nyes. Is it gonna be $100 card? I don't know. Like I said, I'm just kind of really curious about that. Any kind of thoughts you have about Series 1 as we are a couple days away?
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. The cards I want, I'm just gonna wait because I'm not gonna get like Devin Levi. I want to start PC and Levi, but I'm not gonna get caught up and buy it right away and pay way too
Yeah.
much for it. So I'll just let it shake out, see what happens. I will buy some boxes just because I like to rip, and I want to rip some Series 1. But yeah, not a lot of the players just aren't doing much. I mean, Nyes has the Gopher connection. I think would be cool, but besides that,
Mhm. Is there a world where Devin Levi is the biggest chase? Or no?
I don't know. It's so hard with goalies. It's just
Yeah.
so hard. He would have to be have such a season heads and tails over everyone else in that rookie class that it could be no question asked. But if anyone's even remotely close for the season, it's hard sometimes to compare players and or whatever skaters and goalies. But it'd be really, really tough for Levi to be the chase.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we will talk a lot on Thursday about
Yeah.
Series 1, as we'll have had the product in our hands by then. Quick mention for Gong Show partner and sponsor PWCC. Want to thank them again for their support of our show. Reminder, the October PWCC premiere auction ends this Thursday night. So be sure to head to pwccmarketplace.com. Check out all the cards. I think there's 5 hockey cards in this month's premiere.
Yep.
The current weekly PWCC auction is live as well, and there's 161 cards in this week's auction. So on Thursday's show, like we always do, Troy and I will pick out and highlight our favorite both vintage and modern cards in the current weekly auction. And then, Troy, after a 2-week hiatus, the sports card world has missed us greatly. It's like the fall premiere. Jeremy Lee and I will be back at it this upcoming Sunday night at 8:30 Central Time on Jeremy's YouTube channel, Sports Card Live, to cover all the key hockey cards closing in the weekly auction. So again, be sure to go to pwccmarketplace.com for all the hockey cards that they have in either the fixed price marketplace, weekly auction, or premier auction, and tune in this Sunday night on Sports Cards Live YouTube channel at 8:30 Central Time.
Yeah, I need you guys back for what do I do on Sunday night if I don't have coaching? I have to watch you guys talk about hockey cards and then
Record our own show.
Yeah, record our own show, then me try to bid and not win anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have another big mailbag, Troy. So we better get right into it.
We do.
First question from Facebook, Johnny Carvalho. Are Young Guns better than Young Guns Canvas? Are there any other cards that are good value if you want to collect a specific player? I'm not thinking of players like McJesus or Ovi. I'm talking about players in the last 5 years. Maybe what cards would you go for? Well, there's kind of a lot packed in this question, Johnny. Young Guns are probably better than Young Gun Canvas from a money perspective. Young Guns Canvas, I think, are cooler personally in some regards, but they're never going to be as valuable as base Young Guns. So I guess collect what you like in that regard. If you're looking for alternatives to Young Guns, OBG Platinum, Ice Premieres, there's a number of probably stick to like low pop numbered kind of cards. And then I think you asked for some players from the last 5 years that, guys I think about are like that I think could have potential upside are like Matthew Tkachuk, Timmy Stützle, Jack Hughes, and Jason Robertson, kind of the most obvious ones there. But
I'm right on with those players, and I'll be honest, I like Young Gun Canvas better. I like the pictures on them better. Too. Yeah, I like the quality of the cards better. Again, Young Guns base or the regular Young Guns are always, I shouldn't say always, but for the foreseeable future will hold a lot more value than the Canvas. But personally, I like the Canvas better.
One of the things I hear about Canvas a lot as to like why the value isn't so high is people will point to, and they do have very high gem rates.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, it's like people just assume they're all going to gem, but I don't think these same people realize how a lot of young, like we just went through Elias Pettersson with a 77% gem rate. So it's a little more all over the place when it comes to base Young Guns, but I don't really see that as the biggest reason. I just think that the hobbies decided that the base Young Guns is sort of the preeminent rookie card. All right, next question from our Discord, M Miller 20910. Do you have time to listen to other podcasts related or unrelated to hockey cards? And if so, which ones? You want to go first, Troy?
I do. I listen to I try to listen to a lot of podcasts. I do it when I'm driving instead of radio. I just try to listen to podcasts. When I'm writing for the show, I like to have a show on in the background. Specifically on the hockey side, I like to listen to Spit and Chicklets. And Josh, you really had to turn me on to them. I knew about them, but never really listened to them until the last year. And they're fantastic. I listened to the Athletics Hockey Show, the Hockey News podcast I've always liked, In Goal Magazine, which is a goalie-specific podcast I really like. And then there's one called the PDO Cast, which gets more into analytics in hockey. And they'll do some deep dives on players I really like. On the non-hockey side, there's some video game podcasts, MinMax, Nextlander, and the Jeff Gerstmann podcast. Then general sports cards, I like sports card nonsense, obviously. I do listen to Soccer Cards United. Not really that I like soccer cards, but the two guys just crack me up so much that I like listening to them for more of the entertainment value. So that's the ones I try to listen to.
Yeah, I guess on the sports side, I really like Spit and Chicklets. I'm a big Bill Simmons fan too, so I listen to that one a lot. I also like a non-sports like Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman. Lex freaks me out about AI taking over the world most often.
I can't. Lex just puts me to sleep. I've tried, and I feel like I'm going to drive off the road. And we should mention we have a couple one of our listeners, right, has Top
Shelf Cookie Sniper. Listen to his podcast every week and listen to Coach Co too. Thank you for reminding me on those. And then we never ever get political for a very good reason, but I'm going to share this. And year and a half ago, I really got like frustrated with kind of trying to figure out like what's the truth in media. And
Yeah.
I kind of started this strategy, I guess I'll call it, where I specifically, if I want to get like news or information or learn about anything related to politics, where I alternate listening to a podcast with a conservative guest or
Yeah.
speaker or host with then a liberal.
Yeah.
And I really recommend anyone to do that because it's amazing how your just overall perspective changes when you hear both sides of the story.
Yep.
So leave it at that.
Definitely.
All right, next question from our Discord. Our good friend Phil Loud Collector. Well, he has two questions. First one is, our 2022-23 Young Gun acetates in SP Authentic again this year? I would assume so, Phil, but the checklist isn't out, and so you never know. Well, I don't even think those are on the checklist even. Are they? Are
Oh,
those
I don't.
considered
Yeah,
Easter
I
eggs
don't.
typically?
Yeah, I don't
Probably have
remember
to wait
seeing
till
it.
it comes out, but I would assume so. And then he had a really good question, or his second question is really good. He says, I feel like since Bobby Hall died, his cards have been dropping in value. I think maybe collectors are quote unquote remembering he was quite abusive to Brett's mom. Now, is that confirmed? Is that
I'm not
something?
sure if it's confirmed. I
We'll
just
just say allegedly
yeah.
quite abusive to Brett's
There's a
mom.
lot of stuff of that, like stuff he said and stuff that didn't sit right with people.
He said, honestly, I completely forgot and still love the Golden Jet. Tough subject, slippery slope. Agree there. Thought I'd ask for the math, though. Pretty sure I see a lot of vintage cards dropping to juicy acquisitional prices. It's funny, Phil. I actually have a lot different answer than I would have a year ago today. And just as I've learned more and more about vintage cards, first of all, I'll say, though, is that the overall market has been down for the past
Yeah.
6-8 months. You can look at any sort of index and the market has gone down. So I wouldn't be surprised if Hall cards are a little more affordable today than they would have been maybe a year ago. But I did, just to kind of curious about his market specifically, is I did look up a few of sales and did year over year comparisons on his 1958 Topps rookie, which is one of the most iconic cards ever. It's a really cool looking hockey card. And I looked at kind of the middle grades like PSA 4, 5, 6, 7, and quickly kind of got to the point what I've learned in the past year is that there can be such a huge difference in condition and quality and eye appeal of a PSA 6 between maybe what you would consider a low 6 and a high 6. And we've seen, and just like doing our work with PWCC, that there could be a PW6 Gretzky or PSA 6 Gretzky that sells for 2,000 and another one that sells for 5,000. And it's
Hmm.
really about just how nice
Yeah.
the card was. And so for that reason, I think it's really hard now for me to kind of you almost have to go sale by sale and do a subjective analysis. If, well, I think this card didn't sell for or sold for 30% less than the last sale because it's way off centered and the previous sale was much more centered, that sort of stuff. It's just and I think in general, Troy, the more you learn about this hobby, the more you really start to consider comps less as absolutes
Yeah.
and consider them much, much more directionally. And all the indexes that kind of point to if the market's up or down are based on comps. So I
Yeah.
was super long winded, but I hope I made some amount of sense there.
Oh
Did I?
yeah. Yep. Completely makes sense. And obviously, with the stuff we've heard or the stuff about uh, Bobby Hall, it obviously doesn't help. But you
Sure.
just it's one of those issues that you see in a lot of different cards, players, athletes, even music. Think about like Michael Jackson, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it's one of those collector preference kind of things and what you want to do with it.
All right, we're going to move on to next question. Our Discord, Faustable666. Not sure if it may have been covered before, but in episode 123, when discussing holding on to boxes and prices they can command to chase key hits, the guest speaker mentioned as an example, it must have been Karn Ray, that he was aware of 6 to 7 McDavid high glosses being hit from one set, and the 101 basketball card 101 basketball cards still not hitting the market. So my question is, are there any resources or databases out there that track which limited cards have been hit and made known either through auction, sales catalog, social media, etc.? Yeah, so he's kind of saying like if there's a high gloss out of 10, is there a resource that would say these 8 of the 10 have been uncovered? It's a fantastic question. I don't know of any sites that do that. There might be some threads in different forums like
Yeah.
Blowout for like very specific cards that might track this, but beyond that, I don't really know. Troy, do you have any input on this?
So this is like the whole use case that I want AI or Chat GPT or something like that to come in and with all its smarts could figure out if I asked it a question of a specific card, or it could tell me which ones have been hit. But I don't think that's coming anytime soon. But the more I thought about this question, I swear a while ago, a long time ago, someone messaged us on Instagram about some site that kind of had, again, probably just for specific cards, not a complete database. I searched our Instagram messages. I apologize if someone did and I missed it. I couldn't find it, but if you are listening and you want to send that to us again, I would love to know it. But I could have swore someone gave us a site once, but it wasn't like an all-inclusive site. It was kind of, again, specific cards.
Yep. Okay, next question. Discord Rally SC. What are some good days other than Sundays to list cards for auction? I was thinking Saturday is Hockey Night in Canada. Is that what that stands for?
Yeah.
Maybe then. Is there like a major NHL TV night during the week that we should think about aligning to as well? Do you have an opinion here, Troy?
Yeah, I struggle with this. I still just default to Sunday. And that's probably just ingrained in my head that that's always been the case. It's always Sunday. To sell your cards on Sunday if you want the most value. When you start looking at other dates, like big hockey nights, I always get worried that people are just watching the games and not thinking about the cards. But obviously, there should be some correlation too, that maybe people that do watch the game, if they're the cards, are going to jump on and look and see what's out there. But again, I've always just defaulted to Sunday.
We're seeing more and more Thursday night
Yeah.
emerging too. So maybe that's the other option that I would throw out there. If you don't want to, if you think there's maybe too much competition on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Next question from Discord, the real H. Digler. Can you sneak in resting McDavid face into a conversation somehow? I triple dog dare you. Well, Troy, we're never ones to dodge a triple dog dare. We've seen the Christmas Story, Digler.
Yeah.
So we accepted your challenge and we won. Invoices in the mail.
Is that what triple dog dare's from?
Yeah, do you remember with the flagpole?
Oh yeah,
and he was going to stick his tongue to the flagpole.
I was thinking, Dumb and Dumber. You can't triple stamp a double stamp. That's what I was thinking about.
Next question, Discord, Philadelphia Flyogram. How specific does Upper Deck know where cards end up? For example, for the Bedard 101, do they know the exact pack or box it's going into? Do they know which location or vendor that box will go to? Could a card be intentionally held to delay its pack pull? I don't know that Upper Deck would ever. Well, I'm positive they would never tell people exactly how they do it. My hope, though, is that they treat it like a lottery ticket, because the Bedard 101, let's be honest, is a lottery ticket. And I would hope that they have very tight protocols to make sure that it's random and randomized so that people don't know where it's going to end up. The only thing I think that we know for sure is it won't be an e-pack.
Yeah, I think they said hobby, if I remember right, not retail either. But I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm going off of memory. It's always a sticky or like a slippery slope, I guess, because if they know where everything is, does that open them up to some kind of abuse that someone could do at the manufacturer or whatever? There's always worries about that. Again, like Josh said, I don't think we'll ever know, but I have to believe they have some idea where things are kind of landing, but that's just me.
Next question, Instagram, the real McCards. He must be Christmas shopping for a presents, Troy, because he asked, I have a question for the two of you. Which would you rather have? A Kaprizov Cup RPA with a sticker auto, or a Kaprizov Flop Future Watch auto patch that's hard signed? I am Flop all day, every day. all about the flop over
Yeah,
the cup RPA.
I think I'm the flop too. I'm not a big fan of the sticker stuff on the cup with Kaprizov.
Next question, Instagram. Treasury Collectibles. Where do you see the McDavid Young Guns price settling long term? Well, Treasury, I think this is another answer. I'm going to reference what I've learned in the last year plus about this hobby a little bit. I'm really leaning more to looking at base Young Guns as more short term investments, or whether you call that a flip or maybe short to medium term investment. I don't know, however you want to term it. When you consider Young Guns for the long term, the total gem mint population, like of a McDavid base Young Guns, is over 10,000.
Yep.
So you have to. So for that card to double, like I don't know what it's worth, like $3,000 or something like that today.
Yeah, that's right
For that
around
card
that.
to double in value, the hockey market has to probably double because there's 10,000 of them.
Yeah.
And so again, I think like in the case like where Austin Matthews has 6 goals in 2 games, it goes up 33%. That's where you make your money on Young Guns. Where even the Matthews is what you just said is like 3,140 or something like that. Where I just don't know how that can be sustained or consistently grow. I mean, maybe it'll grow with inflation, but probably it from my perspective, I would look
Yeah.
for lower pop, more scarce cards.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Nope, that's a great answer.
Next question, Instagram, Dusty Cards 47. Is my Lafreniere question worthless? Okay, Troy, you can take this one first.
I think he's setting us up. He wants to get us in trouble.
Yeah,
I said no. It's not worthless. He still has a market. He's still young, has shown signs of being a really good player. However, when you are the number 1 overall draft pick, there's an expectation, and when you don't live up to that right away, card values suffer. We have gotten on him. We've made jokes at his expense. We've been called out on it. We know we were kind of cruel to him, but no, he still has a market. It's just not what it once was from a value perspective. But again, he's still young and he can always make a comeback.
And if you're holding, I think, a Laffy collection that you bought maybe during the hype, maybe a couple years ago during the pandemic, I think the hits already happened. So I don't see any reason to sell at this point. You might as well just see how this plays out. He did have a goal in the first game, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would see how this year plays out. Instagram, JB Hockey Cards. Should all low-numbered patch cards be reserved for multicolor patches with a minimum of 3 colors? I've seen out of 25, 10 cards with 1 major color taking most of the patch. I kind of see where you're going with this, JB Hockey Cards, and I tend to agree. I mean, the more exclusive the card should be, the more exclusive the patch. There's a couple, I think, technical issues we could cover with your question. The first is there's some uniforms like Toronto that do not have 3 colors.
Yep.
So you can't have a minimum 3 color in that case, but that's a technicality. I get that. And where I would maybe try to lean in the sort of the spirit of this question is I think the best patches should be reserved for the best sets and the most sought after brands. So like True Cup RPAs, Exquisite RPAs, Ultimate RPAs, and probably Premier RPAs, I think should get the best patches first. That's how I would answer it. Anything to add?
No, I would agree with that. I think you're dead on. I've always wanted to. I don't know how the whole process. I've never watched them cut up a patch to see how that works. And maybe sometimes they just run out before they, they get to those lesser numbered. I don't know how they do it, but that could be something too.
Next question, Discord, T. Olson 70. Any plans to do a Toronto Expo preview show? We sure do. We've done 2 of them already for both shows we went to. We'll do another one. Probably have Mikey Singer on again from the Expo soon, so look forward to that. And then if you weren't following or listening to or watching our show even last spring, we do a preview, real kind of a big segment, and then a number of short ones. And then we kind of have a tradition on Sunday before we head home, sort of recording our off the cuff reaction show. It's a pretty unique show because our shows are very planned out.
Yeah.
And researched, and that's one of the very few shows we do that's almost entirely off the cuff. So
Yep.
I actually kind of look forward to that now.
Yep.
This is a different change of pace, so we plan to do that. All right, next question. Instagram, Sports Card Sweden. What's up with the Reebok patches and Premiere? Are we collecting tags from players' underwear now? So I think what he's referring to is there's made the rounds. There was a Cole Caulfield 101 that was pulled from the newest Premiere or
Yep.
2021 Premiere release. And it had a Reebok, like 4 patch windows with Reebok tags in it. Now, what some very astute people quickly pointed out is, well, it's a 2021 card. And the last year that the NHL had Reebok jerseys was 2017. So how do we have a Cole Caulfield rookie with Reebok
Mhm.
patches in it? So we actually reached out to Upper Deck and got a answer from them that does make sense. I don't know if it satisfies everyone. And we actually talked about this a little bit in the interview with Mitch too, Troy, is we'll kind of cover it again quickly to make sure we're covering our bases here. Caulfield was a rookie in 2019. It was at the rookie photo shoot that where they typically just throw on a jersey and take it off real quick. And I think that their Adidas jerseys were a little hard to get at that time.
Okay.
And Upper Deck probably had Reebok jerseys in inventory still and used one of those. I would say it's a bad look that maybe they should have picked a different patch for the one-on-one. But, and I think too, like how this works is that there's a patch department. Yeah, so I think the cards are designed, they're manufactured, and then there's a patch team or patch department that puts the patches in, and there may have been some disconnect there.
Yeah.
They may not have been aware that they're not using Reebok anymore. But so it's an explanation that makes sense, but I don't think it's very satisfying. Is I guess all my 2 cents. What do you think?
It makes sense to me. I don't like it. I don't know if I'd like it if I was a Caulfield collector, and I'd kind of want the. I don't know. It's just a weird look.
I'd probably
And
sell the card and use the
yeah,
money to buy something else.
yeah, it's definitely. I get it. I do get it, but it's kind of weird.
Next question. Instagram, Top Shelf Cookie Sniper
Hey, there you go.
88. There we go. Listen to Jay's podcast. It's really good. $200 spending budget. What one card or one hockey box do you buy? So I'd probably buy singles and try to find some interesting raw, like Stutzla, Hughes, J. Rob rookies that are numbered or auto that have grading potential. What would you do, Troy?
I personally, like he didn't say this is you know to make money on. So I am just going to buy a SP Signature Edition Legends box. That's my favorite.
But that's 209 on ePack, Troy.
I'll find it for under 200. Oh,
Okay.
I can go to the store. It would be at the card shop for cheaper than that if it's still there.
Or you just claim a budget variance.
Wait till the expo. I'll find it. The conversion will
Yeah.
get me under 200.
Instagram, mbron8. Who will have a better rookie season, Cooley or Fantilli? All right, you want to go first, Troy?
I know I sat there and stared at this. I don't have a good reason, but I'm leaning towards Cooley. I think Cooley's gonna have the better season. You have some reasons why. I think I agree with your reasons, but I kind of want it to be Cooley too. So I'm just gonna say Cooley.
Well, my heart is definitely pulling for Cooley as one of our golden gophers. For the hobby, I hope they're both great. I root for everyone because I want all everybody's market to go up. But my head tells me I think Cooley will get a little bit more opportunity to shine on the Yotes. Maybe have a little bit bigger role than Fantilli will right away. And so maybe I'll give him the slight edge from that perspective. Discord Braun, do you guys have a strategy for 2023-24 UD Series 1 and 2? How many boxes of Series 1 do you think you'll buy a rip? What about Series 2 next year in February 24? Well, I hope it comes out in February. With the possible high box prices, will you buy any boxes to rip or just pick up some young guns, etc., on the secondary market? So we'll probably get a few Series 1 boxes to do some pack opening videos and maybe to open some at the expo, that sort of thing. I want to see what the new configuration is like, so I'm curious about that. As far as Series 2, we talked about this a little bit before already. My mindset is more retail than hobby. I just don't want to buy a $300 box of flagship or $250 and get killed.
Yeah, I will definitely buy some Series 1 to rip for personal, but Series 2 makes me angry, and I get angrier every time I see the price go up. So I'm holding off on Series 2 for now. Individual cards, like I kind of mentioned earlier in the show, I want Devin Levi, Young Guns, but I will wait until all of the hoopla settles down and hopefully those prices come down.
I like this next question, Troy. It's a little bit different. Made me think, which is a good thing to do. Twitter or X, Sebastian Engelhardt always has good
Hmm.
questions. Thinking about collecting insert sets where each card may be only worth $1 or two. Could these be desirable as a complete set later on? What are some cool inserts from sets in the last year or two that would be good to do this with? Is Cheddar the first, right? You can go ahead and take this one first.
I agree 100%. Cheddar is the one you do. Cheddar's awesome. Do the gold cheddars. go for broke with the gold cheddars. I don't know how much they go for, but it can't be that much. I always thought the metal picks too would be fun from Skybox. The guitar picks, and that was our boy Mitch that did the video of him playing guitar with the guitar pick. So that'd be fun. I don't know. This might be out of the $1 to $2 range for some of these, but I thought Dazzlers would be a good one to do this with.
Oh yeah, you can do like rainbows.
Yeah,
Or
you can. They look
player
cool.
or
I mean, I think Dazzlers look cool, and I don't think they're that expensive. There might be some where I'm getting out of the 1 to 2 range, but Dazzlers would probably be my go-to on this.
yeah, it sounds like a fun project. I like stuff like this. Pitter Patter is one that if you want to do something like Enforcer,
Mm-hmm.
Eyes, it's hard at the $1 to $2 range. These are pretty cheap. I really like if you're watching like these Palladium cards
Yeah.
that are the acetate ones. So I don't know. Made me think about maybe doing something like this for myself as well. I'm not really a set guy, and I kind of wondered like maybe should I try it? Have you ever tried collecting like an insert set or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, I always joke about doing cheddar, but I haven't. I'm definitely way more an individual card guy.
Next question, Instagram, the real McCards. Top 3 buy and hold players and inserts. Oh boy. Well, if you're gonna,
Oh, jeez.
it's a broad question, so I'm gonna give kind
Yeah.
of like if you're saying the top 3 buy and hold players, to me it's Gretzky, Lemieux, and McDavid. Like those are your safest bets. For there's a lot more variability and everybody else. Like Cole Caulfield might have 13 goals this year and watch his market tank at that
Yeah.
point. Now, from an inserts, boy, this really tied me up in knots. I really go back to maybe the older ones and go back to like the first. So, like the first jambalayas for any player or essential credentials, that sort of thing is where I would gravitate to. You got any input on this
Uh,
one?
no, I don't, because I just saw this. Sorry. I mean, you don't actually set my top 3 would be Pekka Rinne, Jake Ottner, who else? Mike Bossy. So I could do those, but yeah, I don't have specific cards that I would do. I really do more player stuff than actually looking at what
Yeah.
inserts I like.
Next question, Instagram, the Rempel crew. Josh and Troy, who's your favorite all-time player? You can go first, Troy.
Pelle Lindbergh.
Okay, that was easy. So, because I can never answer any question directly, I'm going to give you 3 answers. All-time favorite player is probably Gretzky, 99. My favorite all-time North Star is Dino Ciccarelli, and my favorite all-time Wild player is Kaprizov.
That's pretty good. Like, I mean, I've talked about IPC on the show, but if it's one player, it's probably Lindbergh, even though his career was so short. But he was the one guy I got into as a kid, and I just loved.
Last question from Instagram, Cardiac Sports Cards. What's the appeal of scripted swatches from the cup? I don't get it. They're not my personal favorites either. So scripted swatches, in case you don't know, are they're the autos on a piece of jersey or piece of fabric.
I agree with this guy. I don't like those.
But that's a total subjective take.
Mm-hmm.
What I do appreciate about them, though, is that it's something different. There's really not that many different types of cards. And so I know that like autos on material or auto like stick pieces are not quite as popular as like a patch auto, but I'm glad that there is that variety.
That's a good point. I hate the bleeding. I just don't like the look of bleeding on those patches or fabrics.
I worry about the auto over the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
Fades faster or something like that. All right, Troy. Personal pickups. Now I've been carrying the team
You have.
for a while, but I have nothing. Not a zilch. I did try, just nothing worked out. But you're here, Troy. So
I am.
What did you pick up?
I came through Slab Sharks auction on Thursday or last Thursday. I had a couple pickups. So the first one was a 2019 Upper Deck Clear Cut Mikko Koivu embedded endorsements auto gold out of 25. I like the PC Wild players, and I don't have any Koivus. So this was my first Koivu. It's out of 25. I thought it was pictures a little odd, but I just like the look of the card. And it, again, out of 25 in his auto. I don't know what's going on at the top of it, but the bottom looks like it says Koivu and then 9. Plus, he's a great Wild player. So I picked it up, and it was super cheap. So that was my first one. Second one was a 2021 Upper Deck Stature Bernie Nichols red auto out of 25. Nice. I love Stature. I've kind of been thinking more about these guys I grew up with as a kid in the 80s, 90s. And I saw this on Slab Sharks. This was cheap. It was $6. So I was like, yeah, it was 9 Canadian, probably what's that, 7 or 8 US. And I had to bid on it. I'm like, I love this card. I love the player. I love the card. It's out of 25. The auto, like some of these statures from 2021, you got to kind of watch because they get bubbly autos. And this auto looked good. Who knows what will happen in the future, if it will bubble up eventually or kind of fade, but just a good looking card. So I bought it.
Cool. Well, way to carry the team for episode 126. So like I said, I have nothing. We do though, Troy. We did get it. I feel like Casey Kasem right now. We got a special request and dedication. So we're going to go through that right now. For Jason from Alberta, from his friend Jesse. So now, Troy, Jesse seems like a really nice guy, and he bought his friend Jason for his birthday a box of Stature.
Yep.
You got it. No, you just bought a $6 Bernie Nichols auto.
I did.
In Jason's box, he pulled the 101 Connor McDavid patch auto.
I'll try to zoom in a little for the YouTube people if they can see it a little better.
That is a very nice box of Stature for sure. So what a gift. What a hit. We wish you a very happy birthday, Jason. Hope you enjoy your amazing card. And Jesse, if you're ever in need of more friends, please let Troy and I know where we can apply, because I need more friends like you.
Yes.
So happy birthday, Jason. Okay, Troy, that's our episode for Monday. If you like the episode, please leave a rating, review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you listen to us on. If you love the show, want to support us, want to chat with us every day on the Hockey Cards Gong Show Discord server, please consider a $5 a month donation. Join our $1.99 support level tier on Patreon. You can go to our website, hockeycardsgongshow.com, and there's a Become a Patron link. You can go to Patreon directly at patreon.com and search for Hockey Cards Gong Show. Or there's a link in the show description for whatever podcast app you listen to us on, or if you're watching us on YouTube. There's also a link in our link tree and our Instagram and TikTok profiles. And we're on social media. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and of course, YouTube. And Troy, the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast is a production of Dollar Box Ventures, LLC. We have a great week. Start to your week. We'll chat with you all again on Thursday.